He lost his family in an accident and discovers that spies are real, so he trains to become the strongest. The story begins with a boy named Tai, who has just lost his family in an accident with truck Kun. The incident made him realize that life is fragile, so he becomes scared, thinking he could lose everyone that's dear to him at any time. His childhood friend Musumi mourns the death of his family, but she tells him not to worry because she will never leave him. After some time, we see Tai in his classroom as his classmates approach him, inviting him to go out with them. But he turns them down, which frustrates them, because this isn't the first time he rejected them, and they wonder why he doesn't want to spend time with them. But they realize he's nervous, so they decide to back off, thinking he must be shy. But we learn that he's happy they approached him, and he just doesn't want to talk to people, because he still can't get over the death of his family. After they leave, Musumi approaches him, and she gives him food, telling him he needs to eat well. Their classmates observe them, and we learn that they're jealous, because they all like Musumi. She becomes worried about Tai, because he's starting to develop an antisocial behavior, saying he needs to talk to people. But he reminds her how she rejected their senior Tanaka, thinking he's a great person, so Tai wonders why she turned him down. But she tells Tai not to think about her, saying he needs to move on and talk to their classmates. She's about to feed him, but the vice principal Hirakawa eats it instead, so she becomes upset, reminding him about his promise to stop snacking, but he explains that he just couldn't control himself. She knows that he's supposed to be on a business trip, but he explains that he changed his schedule because he missed eating her food. He likes the color of her hair, but she tells him to return to his office, and he tells Tai to meet him after class. But Tai wonders if he did something wrong, thinking Hirakawa is a weirdo. After class, Tai enters Hirakawa's office, wondering why he was summoned, but Hirakawa reveals that he has a collection of Musumi's pictures. He explains that he has taken countless pictures of her, revealing that he has been watching her from the shadows to protect her from her suitors. He knows that Tanaka asked her out, and we see that Hirakawa tortured him, telling him to stay away from her. So Tai realizes he's in danger, because Hirakawa is insane, and he threatens to kill Tai, asking him if he's starting to have feelings for her. So he becomes stunned, as he starts fearing for his life, but Hirakawa tells him not to take it personally, saying Musumi is his sister. But a girl suddenly arrives, and she presses a button, covering the room with light, which allows Tai to escape. He regains consciousness, and Musumi greets him, saying she's glad that he's okay, but he realizes that he's surrounded by strangers. So he panics, asking them who they are, but Musumi tells him to calm down, introducing them as her siblings. She reveals that the girl who saved him is Futaba, and she has a brother named Shinzo, who seems to be obsessed with firearms. She has another brother named Kendo, who seems to like cats, and her sister Shion appears to be tech-savvy. Her brother Nano likes to perform experiments, and they have a guard dog named Goliath. Musumi reveals that they're a family of spies, and Tai can't believe this, wondering if he's being pranked. He takes one of Shinzo's guns, thinking it's a toy, but he shoots it, realizing that it's real. They tell him that being a spy is just an ordinary job, and they're working as freelancers, but they appear to be struggling, because the government spies are offering their services for a cheaper price. But Shion reveals that the family has the best reviews on the internet, and Kendo adds that their brother Ichiro is boosting their popularity because the ladies love him. Tai realizes that Kendo is talking about Hirakawa, and Futaba explains that he's a flawed man, but he's the best spy in the family. Tai wonders why he's being targeted, so she reveals that they received an intel, which mentioned that someone wants to kill Musumi. Futaba reveals that Musumi almost died because of Ichiro, and the stress from the incident caused her to have white hair. He blames himself for what happened, so he started obsessing over her, wanting to do everything it takes to protect her. He got rid of the people around her, but he made an exception for Tai, because he's her childhood friend. But after learning about the intel, Ichiro decided to eliminate him. The alarm suddenly rings, as Ichiro enters the house, but the siblings promise to protect Tai. Shinzo reveals that he plays traps around the house, but everyone knows that they're still at a disadvantage, because Ichiro has incredible skills. Tai thinks he's causing trouble for them, but Futaba tells him not to think about it, saying it's always been a family issue. She advises him to marry Musumi, as she explains that there's a rule in their family which prevents them from killing each other. She tells him about the cherry blossom ring, which is used by everyone in her family, saying marriage becomes official the moment half of it is given to a spouse. So Ichiro can't kill him if Musumi gives him the ring, but she doesn't want to marry him because he still hasn't moved on from the death of his family, and Futaba respects their wishes. Everyone prepares to fight Ichiro, but they realize that he's already in the room, saying he destroyed Shinzo's traps. Futaba warns him to back off, but he refuses, so she suddenly slams him into the ground, and everyone starts ganging up on him. But he's able to defend himself, and he uses his weapon to blow them away. He tells them to hand over Tai, threatening to destroy the house if they don't cooperate, but Futaba charges in, trying to close the distance, but she ends up being restrained. Shion tells the others to retreat as she prepares to fight, but Ichiro tells her she's no match for him. But she doesn't care, and she summons her drones, ordering them to fire. We cut to Tai, as he worries about the others, but Musumi reminds him that they aren't allowed to kill family members, so everyone's going to be fine. She shows him a hiding spot, telling him to stay there, but she realizes he's worried, so she assures him that she isn't going anywhere. Ichiro is able to defeat the drones, and he sees Musumi with Tai, telling her to give him a hug, but she suddenly attacks him, so he uses his wires to restrain her. He admits that he's impressed, and he removes the mask, knowing Kingo was disguised as Musumi. He knows that Musumi is pretending to be Tai, and we see Tai watching them, realizing she's in trouble. She removes her mask, telling him to leave Tai alone, because he isn't trying to kill her, and he agrees to this, but he tells her she can't leave the house, saying it's dangerous outside. He explains that he's going to get rid of everything around her, so that nobody can harm her, and he allows himself to get stabbed, as he mentions that he's willing to risk his life to protect her. She's about to accept his condition, but Tai suddenly appears, telling Ichiro to let her go, but he refuses, saying Tai should stay away from their family. He realizes that Ichiro is just like him, because he's also afraid to lose what's precious to him, but Tai doesn't agree with his methods, knowing Musumi is suffering because of him. So Tai tells her to marry him, saying he's going to be fine, because she promised him that she will never leave him. So she throws him her ring, but as he's about to take it, Ichiro stops him, saying he will never allow Tai to marry her. But he refuses to give up, and he's able to take it, as he recalls how Musumi always looked after him, so he doesn't want her to suffer because of Ichiro. The siblings arrive, and they see Tai wearing the ring, promising to protect Musumi. So they celebrate, thinking he's amazing, and Futaba tells Ichiro to train him, so that he can protect Musumi. The next day, we see Tai waking up, but he notices Ichiro standing over him with a knife. He barely dodges it, and Ichiro praises his reflexes, but Tai thinks he's trying to kill him again, but Ichiro explains that it's just a part of his training, saying that spies need to be aware even when they're sleeping. Ichiro says it's time for some exercise next, as he suddenly grabs Tai with his wires. We see Musumi preparing their lunches, but she suddenly hears Tai screaming, so she goes to check on him and finds Ichiro helping him stretch. Musumi starts to get angry, so Ichiro decides to stop. He checks the time and realizes they need to leave, so he suddenly grabs Musumi, and they jump out the window, as the house suddenly blows up. Tai wonders what's going on, and Ichiro explains that someone rigged a bomb in the house. We see them in a car, and Ichiro receives a report from Shinzo, saying the bomb was in the kitchen, so Musumi was the target. Tai wonders why someone would want to kill her, so Ichiro reveals that Musumi is the 10th head of their Yasakura family. Ichiro goes on to explain that the Yasakura family goes back to the ninjas from the Edo period, and all their descendants have superhuman abilities, but there's always one ordinary person who's born as the head. Even though they have no abilities themselves, they carry the superhuman gene, and their offspring will be able to have abilities, so it's the duty of the family to protect Musumi so they can continue their bloodline. Ichiro notes that they don't care about the bloodline, but everyone just wants to protect Musumi as her siblings. Ichiro mentions that Musumi will eventually make her debut in the underworld as the leader of the Yasakura family, so her mission right now is to gain knowledge of the ordinary world, but this also gives their enemies a chance to target them. They are suddenly shot at from behind, and Tai freaks out, but Ichiro tells him that the car is bulletproof. The men start firing with bigger guns, but the car dodges out of the way. Ichiro worries about spilling his tea, telling the driver to drive more smoothly, and we see that it's Goliath driving the car. Tai can't believe this, and the men start shooting rockets at them, but Goliath manages to dodge it. Ichiro spills his tea, so he heads out to deal with things himself. He easily blocks their bullets with his wires, and he cuts up both of the cars chasing them. He returns to Tai and Musumi, reminding Tai that he is now a part of their family, so he also must protect Musumi, planning to teach him everything about being a spy. Ichiro gives him a gun, and tells him his first mission is to protect Musumi from the assassins for the whole day. They arrive at school, and Musumi greets her classmates, but we see Tai following after her, and he does a sweep of the entire room, while the girls find him acting strange. The other boys greet Tai, but they are shocked when they see his face, wondering what's wrong with him. We cut back to the car, as Tai is shocked looking at the gun, but Ichiro tells him they can cover it up even if he kills someone. Musumi tells her brother to stop messing around, and Tai is glad to hear this, but she mentions the main threats are bombs and poison, so a gun isn't helpful. Ichiro tells him to look out for a bomber named Tamaya, saying his bombs are first-rate, and Ichiro has even used his services before, so Tai wonders why Tamaya would turn on him, but Ichiro notes that it's common for people in that line of work to easily switch sides. Ichiro reveals that Tamaya's one flaw is that he is addicted to social media, and he even posts about how his job is going. Ichiro tells them that there are hostages he needs to save, so he won't be with them, but warns Tai not to let his guard down, saying Tamaya has posted that there will be 2 more bombs, so he must protect Musumi at all costs until he gets back. Tai looks around the room, wondering where the bombs could be, and he decides to follow Musumi around, but Tamaya makes a post, saying the second bomb is in place, so he starts freaking out, and he gets hit by a ball. The other boys check on him, but he sees a figure through the window, and rushes towards them. He reaches the infirmary, but hesitates at the door, and the nurse appears behind him, wondering if he's okay. He quickly excuses himself, but we see the woman smile. We cut back to the classroom, where Musumi chats with the other girls, while Tai checks his phone, and sees that the final bomb has been placed. He thinks about how Musumi has learned to protect herself, like how she never eats anything that she's given, and how she always tries not to be alone. The boys apologize to him again for hitting him, and they give him some chocolate. He eats it straight away, and the boys are shocked he actually took it, reminding him how nervous he is when they normally talk to him. Tai instantly feels sick, so they think they should take him to the infirmary, but they remember that the nurse is away today, and Tai ends up passing out. He sees Musumi when he wakes up, and she mentions how the infirmary is closed. Tai wonders if he was the right person for her, thinking he didn't know anything about her even though they're childhood friends, and even though she is in constant danger, she was always there for him. He thinks about how he never even considered her feelings when he decided to marry her, but she suddenly bonks him, saying that she was the one who picked him, and she thanks him for marrying her. Tai is happy to hear this, but he suddenly notices a bomb on the ceiling. The bomb explodes, and the boys wonder about the sound, thinking it must be one of the science club's experiments. We see Nano and the woman admiring the explosion, and we see that she was actually Kengo. Tai and Musumi manage to survive, and Tai wonders how Tamaya could have set the bomb when they were just in a random room. But he remembers back to how the infirmary was closed, and this was the next best place for someone to rest. He realizes Musumi is being targeted through his movements, and he finds the third bomb on his body. He realizes that Tamaya announced his moves on purpose so that Tai would stay by Musumi's side, causing him to be the bomb that would kill her. There's only a few seconds left, and the door is blocked, so Tai jumps out of the building to get away from Musumi, but Ichiro suddenly catches him and disarms the bomb, congratulating Tai for completing his mission. Musumi wonders what he's going to do with the bomb, so he reveals he plans to return it to its owner. Nano and Kengo appear, along with Shinzo, and Musumi realizes they were all watching, but Kengo says they just wanted to see Tai on his first mission. Shinzo hands Tamaya over, who begs for mercy, but Ichiro throws him out the window as his bomb goes off, and everyone admires the explosion. We see Ichiro annoyed as Tai arrives at their house, but Musumi reminds him how Tai's place was destroyed by the bomb and the fact that they're married. There's no way for him to refuse, so he tells Tai to watch his back. We see Tai lying on the ground as a brute holds onto Musumi, who begs him to save her, but he's completely helpless, so the man mocks him for being weak. He suddenly wakes up, realizing it was just a dream, but he thinks about the recent events, knowing he needs to get stronger. But he accidentally steps on Goliath, who becomes angry, so he attacks Tai, and Musumi hears him screaming. So she treats his wounds, revealing that she ordered Goliath to watch over him so that Ichiro would stay away from him. She tells Goliath not to hurt him, and she assures him that Goliath would never attack the head of the family, but Tai is still afraid of him. Moments later, he begs Futaba to train him, saying he needs to get stronger because he wants to protect Musumi. But Futaba suddenly throws him around, telling him not to rush the process because even a talented fighter needs 3 years to make progress, and she tells him that he has no talent whatsoever. She calls him a fool, saying his emotions won't help him achieve his goal, but she knows he's determined to protect Musumi. So she asks him if he wants to try their family's all-out training, telling him that he needs to live in the mansion for a month before his real training begins. He thanks her for the opportunity, but he activates a trap, and he almost dies, as she reveals that the mansion is filled with traps. She mentions that living there is going to be tough, but it's part of his training, saying he'll never achieve his goal if he can't even get past them, so he realizes that he could end up dying. The next day, an alarm activates, but Tai stays on his bed, and the alarm suddenly explodes. So he struggles to leave his room, but he activates another trap, which almost burns him alive. Tai reaches the dining table, where Futaba reminds him that this is part of his training, but Musumi thinks it's too dangerous. Tai wonders how she can survive in the mansion, so she reveals that the traps don't activate for the members of the family. We learn that the house is controlled by a computer, which will recognize him as a family member after he clears all of the traps, but Shion thinks it will take 2 years for him to achieve this. But he suddenly feels weird, as Nano reveals that their food is laced with poison so that they can build up tolerance, but it's only enough to give him diarrhea. So he rushes to the toilet, but he realizes that he needs to get past a locked door, and Musumi is about to help him, but Futaba tells her to let him handle it. Ichiro approaches her, telling her she's gorgeous, but everyone ignores him, and they hear Tai screaming, so they decide to help him. Everyone's enjoying their daily lives, because they can easily get past the traps, but Tai struggles to survive, and his life becomes a living hell. We see Tai in his classroom, but his classmates are worried about him, realizing he's in terrible shape, but he tells them he's okay, so they just leave him alone. We learn that the family gave him a ridiculously heavy shirt, so he's struggling to move his body. One evening, we see Tai practicing with a pistol, because he needs to hit the remote from a distance to turn on the TV. But Musumi interrupts him, advising him to take a break, and she gives him tea, telling him not to push himself too hard. She knows he's doing this because he wants to protect her, and he tries to deny this, but she tells him he's not weak. In a flashback, we learn that Tai and Musumi used to be neighbors, but they barely talked to each other. When they were in high school, Musumi was bullied because of her hair, and we see a group of girls threatening to cut it off. But Tai stops them, and he suddenly cuts his hair, so the girls are shocked, and they decide to leave, thinking he's insane. He explains that the guidance counselor told him to cut his hair, telling Musumi not to think about it, and he promises to help her whenever she's in trouble. Back in the present, Musumi reminds Tai that he's always been there for her, so he shouldn't be so hard on himself. The next day, the alarm rings, but Tai stops it, and he manages to walk past the traps. He takes a pistol, and he's able to hit the power button, so Shinzo is impressed, but he explains that he still can't change the channel, so Shinzo gives him advice. Shion joins them, revealing that she has Tai's performance data, and she gives it to Shinzo. Tai thanks them for their help, but he wonders why Shinzo is always in a garbage can, so she explains that he's shy, but he tells Tai that she isn't so different. She reminds Tai that he needs Nano's help to deal with the poison gas, so he decides to find him. Shinzo thinks Tai has talent, because he's making great progress, but she thinks there's another reason why he's doing so well. We see Kengo and Futaba walking around the mansion, and they see Nano crawling with Tai, telling him that the poison gas can't harm him as long as he stays low. Kengo is about to interrupt them, but Futaba stops him, telling him to stick to his task. Days later, Tai avoids the traps, and he enters the dining table, where he starts eating with the others, and he's able to tolerate the poison. Musumi thinks he's doing well, and he explains that it's been 3 weeks since he started living in the mansion. Musumi gives him milk, and he drinks it, but he suddenly feels weird, so he rushes to the toilet, but he still can't unlock the door. She starts blaming herself, because she gave him the milk, and Kingo is about to open the door, but they see him lying on the ground. So Nano examines Tai, revealing that he has a fever because of fatigue, so he just needs to rest, but he explains that he can survive for another week. But Futaba removes his fake skin, and we see that he's in terrible shape, so she thinks he's going to die if he doesn't take a break. She knows that he's been working with her siblings to survive in the mansion, knowing Kingo was the one who gave him the fake skin. She reprimands Nano for treating his wounds in secret, but he tells her not to blame Nano, revealing that her siblings tried to stop him, but he convinced them to help him because he wants to protect Musumi. But she hits him, calling him an idiot, because he can't achieve his goal if he doesn't take care of himself. She explains that learning how to survive is also a part of his training, and she gives him a book on how to open locked doors, telling him to study it until he recovers. Futaba leaves the room, but she notes that she was wrong about him, realizing that he has incredible willpower, and that his love for Musumi is what keeps him going, so she thinks he's going to succeed. After some time, Tai finally manages to open the bathroom door, so everyone celebrates. He thanks them for their help, and his ring suddenly starts glowing, as Futaba explains that the house has recognized him as a member of the family. She tells him he's doing a good job, but his real training is about to begin, and everyone's rooting for him, hoping for him to succeed. We see Musumi cooking for the family, and she adds a bit of poison as usual, but Tai suddenly asks about putting on a bra, which shocks her. He tries to explain that he was just practicing his disguises, but she doesn't listen. Kingo appears and offers to teach him, but just teases him instead. Shinzo wonders what they're doing, so Tai tears off Kingo's disguise. Ichiro joins them, saying he's going on a mission, and he tries to kiss Musumi, but she just smacks him instead. We learn that Shinzo is also going on a mission, and Tai worries for him, but he mentions it's just a low-level mission where they need to retrieve the original plate for some counterfeit money. Tai can't believe that's considered an easy mission, and Shinzo hands him something before he leaves. We see Tai and Musumi walking to school, and a baseball suddenly comes flying at them, but Tai catches it without even looking, throwing it back with incredible speed, and the coach instantly asks him to join the team. During their lunch break, Musumi mentions how his training has made him more superhuman, telling him to be careful so he doesn't expose himself. After school, Musumi goes over all the paperwork for the family, and Tai can't believe how she can handle everything, but she says she's gotten used to it, and it's her responsibility as the head. She suddenly notices something missing, so she decides to pay Kingo a visit. Tai can't believe how messy his room is, and Musumi tells him he forgot to attach the paperwork for his report. Kingo doesn't think it matters, and Tai suggests looking for it around the room, but Kingo says there's no point looking since he didn't do it. He emerges naked, and Musumi says he should cover himself in front of her, but Kingo notes how they used to bathe together when they were young. Musumi decides to punish him, but Kingo dashes right past them. Tai tries to stop him, but he disguises himself as Musumi, causing Tai to hesitate, so he gets away. Musumi activates hibernation mode, and we see the house going into lockdown. Meanwhile, we see Shinzo crawling through a vent, and he uses X-ray glasses to see what's going on. He notes that the security is tighter than expected, and we see the director arriving at the facility. He's happy that things are going well, but there seems to be someone else pulling the strings. Shinzo takes out two of the guards, and he manages to get the original plate, but the alarm suddenly goes off. We see Musumi and Tai looking for Kingo, and they check to see if he's hiding with one of the other siblings, but no one seems to have seen him. They check Ichiro's room, but it's just filled with pictures of Musumi, so they decide to move on. They are joined by the three other siblings, who wonder what they're doing, so they suddenly realize that Kingo was disguised as them before. They hear Kingo laugh, and he appears in a painting, but he quickly runs off. Tai goes after him, but as they turn the corner, Kingo gets away. Musumi wonders what happened, and Tai points to a tunnel. Musumi can't believe there's a secret passage she didn't know about, and she gets annoyed Kingo got away. Musumi lifts the lockdown, and they head back to Kingo's room to finish the paperwork, but Musumi suddenly handcuffs Tai and calls him Kingo. He wonders what's going on, so Masumi reveals she knew his goal was to get her to deactivate the lockdown, and she also notes how the real Tai always lets her pass through the doors first, so Kingo admits defeat, and he agrees to do his paperwork. We see Tai enjoying some curry, when they suddenly get a call. It turns out to be Shinzo who's freaking out, because there were more enemies than expected, and he used up all his weapons. We learn that although he's a weapons expert, if he runs out of them, he's actually a big wimp, so Masumi asks Tai to help. We see him with a package, and he sneaks into the facility, but a man gets behind him. He remembers his training with Shinzo, so he pushes back to disable the firing mechanism, and he manages to take out the man. There are more people that approach, and Tai can tell that there are 3 of them. He manages to take 2 of them out, but the third prepares to call for backup. We learn that Shinzo gave him a gun, so he decides to use it, and it shoots electricity, which destroys the radio. Tai makes it to Shinzo, and he instantly hugs him, saying he was terrified. He cuddles with his new gun, and Tai thinks they should go, but they are suddenly found. However, Shinzo returns to being a Chad, and he instantly disarms them. They rush out, and Shinzo easily handles the guards. They head for the exit, but there's a sniper, and Tai gets shot in the leg. The man threatens to finish Tai off, telling Shinzo to throw down his weapon. He sees Tai bleeding out, so he throws his gun. In a flashback to Masumi, she tells Tai he can give Shinzo anything as a weapon, just so he can feel comfortable. So Tai suddenly throws him a fork, which he uses to destroy the man's gun, and he's able to finish him off. They manage to escape, and they both apologize for messing up. Tai wonders if he's okay since he's out of bullets, but he thinks he needs to get used to it so he can become stronger, since he needs to protect the family as their big brother. The next evening, we see Tai on the phone with Masumi, who invites him to go on a date with her, but a car stops over, and a strange man appears, so Tai hangs up on her. The man approaches him, introducing himself as a police officer named Seiji, and he tells Tai that he has questions for him. They go to the station, where Seiji reveals that he has a picture of Tai during his last mission, so he becomes nervous, wondering how Seiji was able to find it. Seiji reveals that he has videos of Tai taken during the recent events, thinking he's responsible for everything, so Seiji calls him a criminal, threatening to arrest him. But Seiji thinks he's working with a secret organization, so he offers to help Tai receive a lighter penalty if he sells everyone out. But he refuses, saying he doesn't know anything, and Seiji gives him some water, but he knows it has truth serum mixed in, so he doesn't want to drink it. Seiji forces it into his mouth, but we see that he was able to catch it with a balloon, and he continues to play dumb. Seiji suddenly attacks him, and he realizes that there are dead bodies in the room, as Seiji explains that he just got rid of a drug dealer, saying he isn't afraid to take the law into his own hands. He grabs onto Tai, threatening to kill him, but he sees a thread, realizing that Ichiro is involved, and he tells Seiji he doesn't know anything. Seiji is about to hit him, but he dodges, and the blow ends up shattering the wall. We see Ichiro listening in, and he mocks Seiji for his poor performance, so Tai demands an explanation. Ichiro reveals that Seiji is his friend, saying he's been covering up the family's activities in exchange for their help with his investigations. Ichiro asks him if Tai passed the test, so he explains that Tai didn't snitch, and he's looking forward to working with him. Seiji mentions that he has a big job for Ichiro, but he realizes it's time for his next mission, so he decides to head out. The next day, Tai is exhausted because he wasn't able to get enough sleep, so Masumi is worried about him. Ichiro enters the classroom, saying he's going to be the substitute teacher, and he starts giving a lecture. Tai is about to doze off, but he senses a chalk approaching with ridiculous speed, and he dodges it just in time. We see that it left a hole in the wall, and Ichiro uses Morse code to communicate, telling Tai that he must learn to control his sleeping patterns. Ichiro mentions the dolphin, saying it doesn't go to sleep because it only deactivates a portion of its brain to get the rest it needs. He tells Tai that he needs to learn this skill, but he thinks it's impossible because humans need sleep to survive. Ichiro warns Tai that he will throw another chalk if he sees Tai sleeping, but Masumi tells him to back off, thinking he just wants to torture Tai. He's overjoyed that she's talking to him, and she tells him to stop making Tai's life miserable, but he assures her that he can pass Ichiro's test. But Ichiro suddenly shows them a pellet, and he crushes it, filling the room with sleeping gas. Musumi wears a gas mask, and she becomes annoyed, realizing that everyone fell asleep. Ichiro sees Tai sleeping, so he throws multiple chalks, but Tai manages to defend himself, and Musumi is surprised, realizing he can move while he's sleeping. Ichiro realizes he's half awake, and he starts throwing even more chalk, but Tai is able to dodge all of them, so Ichiro is impressed, and he continues to throw chalks until the class ends. But that evening, we learn that Tai can no longer return to the half-awakened state, and everyone finds him creepy because they see him sleepwalking. The next day, we see Tai reading a manual on how to date like a spy, realizing he isn't spending enough time with Musumi, so he's afraid that their marriage could end in divorce. He's about to invite her to go out with him, but he suddenly receives a call, and Seiji tells him he has an urgent mission. Tai goes to an amusement park, and Seiji tells him to catch a dangerous couple, saying they're causing trouble with their guns. But Seiji doesn't know what they look like, so he advises Tai to be on the lookout for suspicious behavior, but he realizes he's surrounded by couples, so he realizes he's attracting too much attention because he's all alone. But Musumi suddenly approaches him, saying she knows about his mission, and she plans to help him blend in. She mentions that there are suspicious people around them, and she explains that she can defend herself, so he doesn't have to worry about her. He notices a sweet couple, and they appear to be having a good time, as the man compliments the girl's outfit. So Tai tries to copy him, telling Musumi that she can unleash high kicks with her outfit, but she just tells him it's easy to move around in, and he realizes that he's struggling to keep her entertained. They see a suspicious couple entering a roller coaster, so they decide to follow them, and everyone enjoys the ride, but Tai ends up falling asleep because it's nothing compared to his training. After the ride, Musumi and Tai continue to observe the couple, realizing they aren't as dangerous as they look, and they see another couple, thinking they look like troublemakers. So Tai decides to follow them as they enjoy the ride, and they suddenly start making out, so he realizes they're just a normal couple. Musumi notices another suspicious couple, and Tai decides to observe them as they enjoy coffee. He hears the man talking about a special item as he reaches out for his pocket, so Tai thinks he has a gun, but he just pulls out a ring, asking the woman to marry him. So Tai is frustrated because he doesn't have a lead, and we see that he's holding onto a rose, thinking about making Musumi happy. But he hears this sweet couple arguing, and he can't believe this is happening because they were so close during the rides. They suddenly pull out their guns, so Tai realizes they're his targets, and everyone panics as they start shooting each other, so Tai takes cover. He realizes that his rose has been shot, so he becomes upset, and he shoots them with his electric bullets. The police arrive to arrest them, and Seiji thanks Tai for his help, saying he did a good job, and Ichiro learns about this, but he appears to be upset because Tai went on a date with Musumi. We see Tai and Musumi on the Ferris wheel, as Musumi mentions that they were able to enjoy all of the attractions. Tai wonders why she didn't want to ride the Ferris wheel until they finished the other rides, so she explains that she wants to enjoy the sunset with him. He gives her the rose, saying it was damaged during the shootout, but he decides to give it to her because he wants to thank her for everything she has done for him. So she accepts it, and they spend the rest of the day together. Back at the house, we see Shion exhausted as she finally completes her mission. She prepares to sleep, but a mysterious girl suddenly hacks her system. She fights back against the hacker, and we see her character running after a hedgehog, but the girl disconnects her computer, allowing her to get away, and when she turns it back on, we see she stole pictures of Tai. The next morning, Tai and Musumi run into Shion. They wonder why she looks so tired, so she mentions the hacker, thinking that it was strange that they only took pictures of Tai, which gives him a bad feeling. Tai and Musumi head to school, thinking about what the hacker was after, but they are suddenly stopped by some needles, as we see the mysterious girl. Tai decides to run, but they can't get away, so he prepares to fight. The girl suddenly attacks him, but he manages to push her back. The girl declares her love for him, but also mentions she's trying to kill him, so Musumi recognizes her as Ayaka, the manhunter spy. Ayaka isn't fond of the nickname, but Musumi explains that she uses her spy techniques to follow men that she has fallen in love with and stabs them with her needles. Ayaka reveals that she fell in love with him after seeing a video of him on the dark web, but it also led to a certain company putting a bounty on him. She suddenly throws her needles up, and we see that there are other people that are after Tai for the bounty, but Ayaka starts losing it, wanting Tai all for herself. Tai mentions how he's married to Musumi, so he can't let himself be killed. Ayaka cries hearing this, wishing she could kill Musumi immediately, but reveals she got permission from Ichiro to target Tai, on the condition that she doesn't touch Musumi. Tai and Musumi can't believe Ichiro would allow this, and Ayaka suddenly throws needles all around them, but tells them she will see them again soon, as she leaves. They get to school, and Ayaka is introduced as a new transfer student. She's given the seat next to Tai, and as she heads to her seat, she trips and throws a needle at him, but he manages to stop it. We see Tai going about his normal day, as he avoids the assassination attempts from Ayaka. He has lunch with Musumi, and he just continuously dodges the attacks from Ayaka. Ayaka starts to become desperate, so she uses her needles on everyone else in the class, explaining that she injected them all with a mind-controlling poison. She orders them to grab him, and they all hold him down. She prepares to finish him off, but Musumi gets in the way, telling her she's gone too far, but at that moment, the bounty hunter from earlier appears, and he shoots at Ayaka to get revenge, but Musumi pushes her out of the way, and Tai fires his gun at the man. He checks on Musumi, and Ayaka wonders why she saved her, so she mentions that she's happy there's someone else who can see how great Tai is. Ayaka sees her as an angel, and she falls in love with her. As they head home, we see Ayaka clinging to Musumi, and she now wants to kill Tai so she can have Musumi for herself. Tai isn't happy with this, but he suddenly gets a call from Shion. They meet with her in her room, and Musumi reveals Shion is always looking for people to play games with. Tai is confused, but Shion starts the game, revealing that they just need to defeat the enemies that appear. They start playing, and Shion mentions it's time for the boss. Tai is surprised it's so soon, and they fight against a train monster. Tai mashes his controller, and they manage to defeat the boss. At that moment on the news, there's a report about a runaway train that has suddenly come to a stop, and Shion reveals that she hacks into the systems of her targets and converts it into a game, which she must then clear to do her job. She notes that she can't always do it alone, revealing a helicopter that's about to crash into a power plant. They prepare to play the next game, and we see they need to defeat a dragon. Shion gives him a revival item just in case, and she starts fighting against the Ichiro monsters. Tai struggles against them, but he somehow activates God mode, and Shion yells at him for using cheats. The dragon gets closer to the target, but Shion uses a combo, dodging the dragon's breath, and she takes it out. Tai is impressed, but the game isn't over, as countless dragons suddenly appear, and we see that it's a swarm of drones. Shion thinks it's over for them, but Tai gets an idea. He uses the revive item to bring back the dragon, and they start wiping out the drones. We see the helicopter shooting them down, and Shion is impressed it's working. But a few of the drones manage to get past. However, Ayaka suddenly appears, and she takes them out, determined to get some pictures of Musumi. Tai and Shion manage to finish off the rest of the drones, and the mission is finally cleared. Shion compliments him on his plan, but insists on playing more games with him, refusing to let him leave. We meet a spy named Oga, as he sees Tai in a magazine, finding him interesting. But his companion Sui mentions he isn't interested, saying they need to focus on their mission. We see Tai in the middle of his training session, when he receives a call from Nano, who mentions that he needs Tai to pick him up. He reveals that he's snuck into a laboratory, which is manufacturing a biological weapon called sodium, and his mission is to neutralize it. He explains that it's stored in a capsule, and it will kill everyone within a 10-kilometer radius if it detonates, but he eats it, so Tai becomes worried, wondering if he's going to be okay. But he reveals that his body is special, because his organs can detoxify it in 3 hours, but he starts to feel drowsy. Tai reminds him that he's still in the middle of his mission, but he reveals that he put everyone in the lab to sleep, telling Tai to save him before the guards notice him, and he ends up falling asleep. Tai goes to the lab, but he realizes that the guards have been knocked out, thinking Nano isn't responsible for this. He gets spotted by a guard, who suddenly gets knocked out as Oga and Sui arrive. They recognize him, knowing he's in the middle of a mission, and Sui reveals they're from a group called Hanagiku, which is an intelligence unit controlled by the government. He explains that their mission is to neutralize the lab, and Oga uses his senses to survey the area, realizing there are guards below them, so Sui thinks they're protecting an underground base. They're about to continue their mission, but Oga wants to see Tai in action, so he tells him to join them, and Tai recalls that they just saved him, so he decides to trust them. They defeat the guards together, and Tai sees Nano, realizing he's still sleeping. But Oga suddenly tries to attack him, revealing that their mission is to kill him, and Sui reveals that they used Tai to lead them to Nano, knowing his goal is to rescue him. Sui thinks Nano is a threat because he ingested the biological weapon, so they need to kill him for national security. But Tai protects him, threatening to shoot them, so Sui attacks him with ridiculous speed, and he collapses because of his injuries. Sui calls him a fool because he let his guard down, wondering why he was accepted into Musumi's family. Sui prepares to kill Nano, but he suddenly wakes up, saying he has detoxified sodium, and he shows them a patch test, which reveals that his sweat doesn't contain poison. Sui believes him, and he decides to take the patch test for documentation. He gives Nano an ointment, explaining that it can heal Tai's injuries, but he mentions that Tai is too weak, thinking he isn't worthy to be a spy. After some time, we see Tai as he's restrained by Ichiro, who shows him a magazine, which mentions that he was defeated by the Hanagiku. So Ichiro becomes upset, and he reveals that they have been receiving terrible reviews recently, thinking Tai is ruining their family's reputation. Ichiro calls him weak, reminding him that he can't even save Nano, who suddenly arrives with Musumi, telling Ichiro to apologize for his actions. They save Tai, but he blames himself for everything, thinking he's too weak to be in the family, but Ichiro tells him he can redeem himself, saying he just needs to defeat the Hanagiku. We see Sui on a train, as he argues with a man who is taking up too much space, but the man threatens to kill him, so Sui cuts his clothes to pieces. He realizes that Tai is watching him, asking him if he wants to get revenge, but we learn that Ichiro told him to steal the Hanagiku's intel, explaining that the best way to defeat spies is to gather information about them. Tai admits that he lacks experience, so he wants to learn by stalking Sui, but as the train reaches a station, Sui starts walking away with ridiculous speed. Tai struggles to catch up to him, but he jumps past the crowd, and he's able to reach him. But Sui suddenly attacks, destroying his clothes, and the guards surround him, thinking he's insane. But he continues to follow Sui for days, observing his behavior, and he always catches Tai, so he destroys his clothes to get rid of him. We see Sui and Oga fighting a group of thugs, as Tai joins the fight, so Sui attacks him, but he tries to evade. Oga realizes that Tai's pants are still intact, but Sui attacks again, and Oga wonders why he was also hit. We see Nano in the mansion, as he searches for Tai, so Ichiro reveals that he's using him as a chopping board. Nano asks him if he's okay, and he explains that he doesn't stand a chance against the Hanagiku, thinking he's lame, so he wants to get stronger for the family. But Nano tells him he's amazing, because he always surprises everyone with his actions. Ichiro thinks Tai enjoys the habit of getting stripped naked, but Nano punches him away, and Tai realizes that everyone has a habit. The next evening, Tai approaches Sui as he cleans a gravestone, and he becomes annoyed, so he threatens to kill him. He attacks with incredible speed, but Tai manages to catch him because he realized that Sui always starts his attacks by aiming for the center. Tai throws him away, and he's able to recover as he realizes why Tai was accepted into Musumi's family. He orders Oga to take care of Tai, so he wraps him with bandages, saying he's impressed that Tai was able to avoid Sui's attack. But Sui explains that Tai was able to discover his habits, thinking Tai has potential, so he decides to spare his life. The next day, Tai realizes that he has been featured in the magazine again, but it calls him a pervert because he always runs around naked. Nano thinks he has a strange habit, and he can't believe this is happening, but Musumi tells him she still loves him. We see Tai and Musumi walking at the park, as Tai wonders where they're going. Musumi greets Sui, and Tai can't believe this, realizing she arranged a meeting with the Hanagiku. She reveals that she knows Sui, but she tells him she's angry because he tried to kill Nano, so he explains that he was just following orders. Sui takes them to a cafe, where he orders a drink with a ridiculous name, so the bartender tells them to enjoy, as he opens a trap door, causing them to fall. Sui welcomes them to the Hanagiku, and he tells Musumi to enjoy her drink, but he advises Tai to look ahead, and he realizes that it's filled with traps, as Sui explains that it's designed to get rid of intruders. Tai struggles to survive, and he manages to reach the bottom, but Sui warns him to move, as a giant ball is about to crush him to death. But the leader of the Hanagiku, Rin, punches the ball, shattering it in an instant, but she wonders if Tai can protect Musumi, calling him a weakling. They have a tea party together, as Musumi reveals that Rin was Ichiro's classmate. But she doesn't like him, and we learn that she's also fond of Musumi, so she wants Tai to protect her, thinking Ichiro is a threat to her. But Sui thinks Tai is the weakest spy in the world, so Musumi defends him, saying his soul is incredibly strong. There's suddenly an explosion, as Ichiro arrives, threatening to kill Rin if she doesn't hand over Musumi. Rin tells him to leave, but he refuses, thinking she's trying to corrupt Musumi, so he attacks her, but she fights back, and they start exchanging blows, creating shockwaves which threaten everyone in the base. Musumi tries to stop them, but they realize they're about to hit her, so Tai saves her, but he takes the full force of the blows, so he collapses. Musumi becomes upset, telling them she won't talk to them if they keep causing trouble, so they stop fighting, and Rin realizes that Tai is tougher than he looks. After that, Rin gives Tai a mission, telling him that the Hanagiku has been investigating a politician. His name is Yuri, and everyone loves him, thinking he's an amazing person, but we learn that he's working with 3 spies, and they committed crimes to help him work his way up. Rin explains that the next election is about to take place, so she thinks he's going to make a move, revealing that the Hanagiku discovered a bomb during one of their missions. She adds that they were able to arrest a smuggler, who revealed that he was selling bombs to his customer, and they think he was referring to Yuri. But she knows it isn't enough to arrest him, so they need to learn about his plans before he detonates the bombs. Tai wonders why she's giving him this mission, so she explains that he's harder to detect, because he isn't a member of the Hanagiku. They disguise him as a girl, as Rin explains that Yuri wants to hire a female assistant, and she tells him to gather information about the bombs. We see Yuri attending an event, where he introduces everyone to his new assistant, but a group of men suddenly interrupts him, calling him a tyrant. So his supporters oppose them, and a fight breaks out as a speaker falls, and it's about to hit the leader of the group, but Yuri saves him, telling him he has the right to voice his opinions. Everyone is touched by this behavior, and the medics take Yuri to the ambulance. But as he leaves, we learn that it was all staged, and the spies remove their disguise. One of them shows him a graph, which mentions that he's gaining popularity, and he tells his spies to share his video so that the citizens will vote for him. But we see Tai hiding, thinking Yuri is a despicable man, so he wants to expose him. They return to the office, where Tai examines Yuri's documents, but he can't find anything he can use against him. Yuri's campaign is doing well, as Tai notes that he appears to be using underhanded methods to gain the advantage, but Tai is worried about the bombs, thinking he might use them in the future. Yuri's group returns to his office, and Tai becomes frustrated, wondering how they're able to commit crimes, because all they do is dance. But he notices something odd about their movements, realizing that they have been using dance moves to communicate, and he starts to understand what they're talking about. He observes Yuri, who starts talking about a terrorist attack, so he watches their movements, realizing they're about to use the bombs. Yuri meets the Prime Minister, and we learn that he sees him as a threat, so he plans to get rid of him. He detonates the bomb, but everyone sees an explosion in a fountain, and we learn that Tai placed it there. But Yuri threatens to kill him, saying he has another bomb, and he knows about Tai's real identity. Yuri shoots him, and he hits the detonator, causing another explosion. But he realizes that everyone's covered in shock-resistant jackets, and Tai recovers, as Yuri realizes that his gun was loaded with fake bullets. But he thinks Tai doesn't stand a chance, telling him he's outnumbered. But Sui suddenly arrives, disarming Yuri and his spies, and he tells them they're under arrest. So the spies escape, as he calls Yuri a fool, saying he should never seek loyalty from spies, before taking him down. Tai is ordered to escort Yuri to the headquarters, and we see them riding a bus, as Yuri tells Tai that he knows what happened to his family, saying it wasn't an accident. So Tai asks him what he knows, but he refuses to answer, and he mentions that the world is filled with hidden truths. Sui calls Tai, telling him that the Prime Minister has been kidnapped, as Yuri suddenly breaks free. He removes his earring, which is revealed to be a bomb, and it explodes, allowing him to escape. Back at the mansion, we see Nano working on a potion, thinking Tai is going to get hurt during the mission, so he wants to be ready in case this happens. Musumi reveals that she's also worried about Tai, but she prepares a feast for him, thinking he will recover after he eats it. She wonders what her siblings are doing, and we learn that they're preparing for Tai's return, but they're all expecting him to get beat up, so they're trying to cope with the situation. But Ichiro seems to be happy, thinking Tai isn't going to make it. We return to Tai, as he saves the driver, and he receives a call from Sui, who reveals that they were expecting Yuri to escape. We learn that he's a legendary spy, and he was known as Kurogawa, but everyone thought he died a few years ago. Sui reveals that they're tracking his movements, knowing he will lead them to the Prime Minister. Yuri sits with the Prime Minister, and we see that everyone's watching them, as Yuri reveals that he isn't interested in politics. He removes his disguise, and the Prime Minister recognizes him, wondering how he's still alive. He reveals that he lost his daughter, and he eliminated countless politicians to get revenge, but the Prime Minister knows everything, so Kurogawa wants everyone to witness his execution. He threatens to kill the Prime Minister if he doesn't reveal the truth, but he refuses to say anything, so Kurogawa prepares to shoot him. But the broadcast ends abruptly, as Tai destroys the camera, and he tells Kurogawa to release the Prime Minister. But Kurogawa reveals that he knows about the electric revolver, saying it's going to affect the Prime Minister if Tai decides to shoot him. He fires his weapon, but he misses, as Tai suddenly charges in, and he tries to use a technique. But Kurogawa manages to take him down, and he reveals that he's familiar with the technique, knowing Tai had learned it from Futaba. Kurogawa restrains him, as he explains that he isn't the best fighter, but he's excellent at handling information, saying he can exploit it to defeat his opponents. Tai wonders why he was pretending to be Yuri, so he explains that he's doing it for revenge, revealing that he was hired by politicians because of his ability to exploit information. In a flashback, we see Kurogawa doing the dirty work for the politicians, and he returns home, celebrating his daughter's birthday. We learn that his wife passed away, so he's working hard to provide for his daughter, who tells him she missed him. But she asks him if he was the one who sent her a present, telling him she received a gift before he arrived, but it suddenly explodes. He's able to survive the explosion, but his daughter dies in his arms, as he realizes that the politicians tried to kill him because he has already served his purpose. We return to the present, as Kurogawa reveals that he pretended to be a politician so that he can attract the Prime Minister's allies, thinking his strategy was perfect because he was able to kill them. Tai tries to attack him, but his spies protect him, telling Tai that he doesn't stand a chance. Kurogawa promises to tell him the truth about his family if he backs down, and he admits that he wants to hear it, but he refuses to leave, saying he doesn't want people to die. Sui arrives, destroying the floor, and Kurogawa's spies fall to the bottom, as Sui mentions that he'll deal with them, telling Tai to arrest Kurogawa. So he tries to attack with his knife, but Kurogawa stops him, knowing his knife is poisoned, so he uses it to stab him and punches him away. We cut to Sui, as the spies recognize him as the Hanagiku squad leader, knowing he's incredibly skilled. But they think he's no match for them, as they tell him about their powers, revealing that they can each control an element. He thinks they're being arrogant, as he reveals that the foundation of the Hanagiku combat style is the movement technique, saying anyone can master it, but it's incredibly effective. They combine their powers, and they attack him with their ultimate technique, but he slices it in half, and he attacks them in an instant, as they realize he's too strong for them. He's about to return to Tai, but he suddenly senses a strange presence, so he draws his sword, but he sees nothing, thinking he's being watched. Tai gets back up, as Kurogawa reminds him what it's like to lose his family, saying he can't change reality. So he recalls that he was depressed when it happened, but Musumi stayed by his side, and she helped him move on. He thinks reality doesn't have to be accepted, because there are still things he can change, and he charges in, as Kurogawa tries to predict his next move, thinking he already knows everything about him. But Tai suddenly uses Sui's technique, and Kurogawa can't believe this, wondering how he's able to do it. We learn that Ichiro told Tai how to defeat the best spies in the world, saying they already know everything about him, so he needs to improvise, and use a technique he has never used before. Tai uses Nano's antidote, giving him a speed boost, and Kurogawa tries to stab him, but he uses Kengo's fake skin to disarm him. Kurogawa pulls out his gun, but Tai uses his wires to destroy it, and he takes Kurogawa down, as he realizes that it's all over for him. So he admits defeat, saying he respects Tai because he was able to struggle through his hardships, so Kurogawa gives him a note, and decides to tell him the truth about his family. But he suddenly gets shot, and he tells Tai to live without fear, before bleeding to death. Sui arrives, thinking Kurogawa was killed by an assassin, but he tells Tai to be proud, because he was able to complete his mission. After some time, Tai reads the note, and it leads him to a tree, where Kurogawa buried his daughter. He pays his respects to her, and he follows Kurogawa's instructions, allowing him to obtain a mysterious item. He returns to the mansion, and everyone's happy to see him, telling him he did a great job, but Futaba realizes that Ichiro is sad, because he didn't want Tai to survive. The next day, Rin throws a party for Tai, saying she wants to thank him for completing the mission. We learn that she gathered ingredients with her bare hands, but she realizes that Ichiro is in the party, so she tells him to leave. But he reveals that he brought drinks with him, so she allows him to stay. Sui cuts the animals into pieces, and Tai cooks them, telling Musumi it's ready, so he gives her food. But Ichiro suddenly shoves them into his mouth, so Rin tells him not to interfere, and they start having a food fight, as Rin runs with the others, telling them to stop fighting. Oga tries to get food, but he ends up getting hit, and Tai realizes they won't be able to eat. But Sui uses his movement technique, and he's able to catch food for them, but he tells Tai not to copy his move, because it has already taken a toll on his body. After the party, Tai thinks about the mysterious item, thinking it contains information about his family. Musumi asks him if he's going to open it, but he reveals that he's afraid, because he could end up like Kurogawa, thinking he will want revenge if he learns his family was murdered. But she suddenly kisses him, so he becomes flustered, and she assures him that she won't leave him no matter what happens. They realize he dropped the box, and they see a marble, as Ichiro explains that it contains a recording, but he threatens to kill Tai, so Rin restrains him, telling them to escape. Musumi and Tai return to the mansion, and Ayaka suddenly rides Tai, so he asks her what she's doing there. She explains that she's there to protect them from assassins, and Musumi reveals that she asked her to live with them so that she can work as their maid. Ayaka reveals that she knows what happened during their last mission, and she takes the marble from Tai, giving it to Shion, who explains that it's damaged, so it's going to take time to analyze it. Ayaka reveals that Tai has a huge bounty on his head, so she thinks he's going to get into trouble because the assassins will try to hunt him down. She wants to help him, saying she will try to assassinate him so that he will learn how to defend himself, and he thinks this is a bad idea, but Musumi tells him it's for his own good. One evening, we see that Tai is exhausted, and Musumi tries to prepare tea for him, but she realizes that Ichiro is out of tea leaves, saying it's his favorite. Tai takes a bath, but Ayaka tells him not to let his guard down, and she tries to attack him, but she suddenly gets electrocuted, as Tai realizes that she accidentally triggered a trap. So he breaks the wall, and he grabs onto the main power source, as he endures the electrocution, allowing him to destroy the trap. He tells her not to be reckless, but Ichiro suddenly arrives, thinking he's cheating on Musumi, so he shows him a torture device, saying he's going to use it on him. So Tai runs away, as Musumi observes their behavior, but she thinks Ayaka is fitting in with her family. We see Tai as he's about to leave for his next mission, when Musumi tells him he forgot his phone. But she realizes that someone named Kahoru is calling, and Tai quickly takes his phone, before leaving for work, so Ayaka finds him suspicious, thinking he's cheating on Musumi. She reveals that she's been stalking him, and she believes he's trying to hide something, because he's been acting strange recently. The next day, Tai has a date with Musumi, and he wonders why she brought Goliath with her. So she reveals that he only walks with the head of the family, and he's actually a special breed that underwent countless modifications. He suddenly grows in size, as she explains that he's a guard dog, and he's been protecting the head of the family for hundreds of years. She rides him, telling Tai to join her, but Goliath knocks him down, as she realizes that he doesn't like him. She tells Tai to take his leash, so he grabs it, but Goliath suddenly runs with ridiculous speed, as Tai struggles to hold onto him. So he collapses, and Musumi wonders if he's okay, as a group of kids approach Goliath, thinking he looks amazing. But as Musumi approaches, he realizes that there's a bomb attached to a balloon and it suddenly explodes, but Tai protects everyone, asking them if they're okay. Goliath becomes upset, so he smells the bomb fragments and he tracks the location of the culprit. Musumi uses a machine to analyze it, and she's able to communicate with the bomber, who reveals that he wanted to kill her, thinking she's pathetic because she has no powers whatsoever. But she tells him not to mess with her family, saying he'll never get away with it, as Goliath breaches his door, so he realizes it's all over for him. Goliath returns to Musumi, and we see that Tai has recovered, but he receives a call, realizing he needs to return to the mansion. So Musumi orders Goliath to take them back, and he allows Tai to ride him as he runs to the mansion. Tai is glad that he's able to make it back in time, but Ayaka suddenly attacks him, calling him a cheater. She shows him a picture, thinking he's been dating a girl, and Ichiro thinks this is unforgivable, so he prepares to torture him. But two members of the Hanagiku arrive, as a girl introduces herself as Miji, saying she's there to deliver a package to Tai. He reminds her that she's supposed to give it to him in secret, but she knows he's in trouble, so she wants to help him. We learn she's with her grandfather Kahoru, so Musumi realizes he was the one trying to call Tai. He explains that he was working with Tai to obtain an item, and we see that it's Ichiro's favorite tea. We learn that it's extremely rare, but Tai went on dangerous missions to gather its ingredients because he wanted to thank Ichiro for looking after him. Kahoru explains that he kept it a secret from everyone because he wanted to surprise Ichiro, so they realize he's innocent, but Ichiro feels guilty because he was never a good brother to him. Ayaka immediately apologizes, but Ichiro refuses to admit that he's wrong, so Goliath punishes him, as Musumi thanks Tai for the tea, glad that she has such a great husband. Tai sees Musumi with an album, and she explains that she found it while she was cleaning. She shows him a family picture, telling him it was taken when Nano passed his spy license exam. She explains that they take a picture whenever one of them passes the exam, and Tai wonders what a spy license is, so Futaba tells him it's like a membership card issued by the Spy Association. She explains that those who pass the exam are given a spy license, which allows them to get benefits and job referrals from the association. She tells him about the rankings, telling him he will start at the bronze rank if he passes the exam, and he can take promotion tests to increase his rank. The spies at the higher ranks are given advanced missions with greater rewards, and they also have access to more benefits. So he thinks about taking the exam, but Ichiro tells him his siblings passed it on their first try, threatening to kill him if he ends up failing. They suddenly hear a scream as Ayaka apologizes to Shion because she touched the cables on her device as she was cleaning it, causing it to glitch out. The monitor suddenly turns on, showing everyone a ghost, and Futaba loses it, as Tai wonders what happened to her. So Musumi explains that Futaba is afraid of ghosts, and they need to watch over her because she's going to be paranoid for an entire day. They suddenly hear a strange noise, so Futaba freaks out as Shion reveals that she has been hearing strange noises in the house, thinking there could be a ghost. Everyone looks after Futaba because she's too scared to do anything, so they're helping her regain her composure. That evening, Futaba is about to sleep with Musumi, but they hear the strange noise again, and this frightens her, so Musumi decides to read her favorite book called Momotaro. She starts reading it, and we learn that it takes place in a world where humans and demons are at war. In the story, an old woman sees a baby by the river, and she decides to call him Momotaro, but Musumi suddenly falls asleep. So Tai continues the story, and he mentions that the woman decided to adopt Momotaro. But when he grew up, he became a soldier, and he was forced to kill his best friend because he was an enemy of humanity. Tai mentions that everyone has no choice but to surrender to the flow of life, and Futaba thinks this story was great, revealing that her mother used to read it to her. She tells him she used to be fearless, but when she lost her mother, she realized death is inevitable, and she's afraid of losing people who are dear to her. So she thinks she's pathetic, revealing that she wants everyone to think she's afraid of ghosts, because she doesn't want them to learn about this. Tai tells her he understands how she feels, and he explains that he wants to get stronger, so that he can protect everyone he loves. But she reminds him it's getting late, so she tells him to go to bed, and she wishes him luck with the exam. After some time, Tai takes the exam, and we see that he's doing great, so the other participants think he's amazing, but one of them sees him as a threat. During their lunch break, we see a man observing Tai, knowing he has a bounty on his head. So he tries to kill him, but another participant named Tsukiyo blows him away, reminding him they aren't allowed to fight, so the man runs away. Tai thanks Tsukiyo, who reveals that he's in love with him, so Tai realizes he's a creep, but he explains that he's serious. Musumi recognizes him, knowing he's a playboy who enjoys flirting with everyone, so she tells him to stay away from her husband. But he tells her she can't stop him, and he explains that he loves Tai because of his personality, saying he's been stalking him. They hear an announcement that the exam is about to resume, so Tsukiyo tells Tai they must finish it together. Tai goes through the practical exams, and he's able to pass all of them, but Tsukiyo won't stop bothering him. During the written test, Tai struggles to answer the questions, and he realizes that several participants have failed. Tsukiyo allows him to copy his answers, but he ignores him, and Tai manages to pass the test. After that, a voice informs the participants that they have passed the exam, and they can get their license at the end of the hall. But the voice tells them that the venue will be destroyed, and it suddenly starts collapsing, so everyone rushes to get their license. Tai and Tsukiyo are able to avoid the traps, but Tai's rival sees his chance, and he hits Tai, knocking him down. Tai is about to fall down, but Tsukiyo tells him not to give up, and he pushes him to safety. But Tai realizes that Tsukiyo is about to fail, so he saves him, telling him to finish the exam. But Tsukiyo creates a gust of wind, which pushes them up, saving both of them, and he reveals that he's actually a proctor, saying he's there to test Tai's humanity, which is considered to be the most important subject. He explains that technical skills are just the basics, and the association values spies who can be trusted, so Tai's rival ends up failing. Tsukiyo gives Tai his license, and he congratulates him for passing the exam. But Tai asks Tsukiyo if he's really in love with him, and he confirms this, so Tai quickly runs away. Tai returns to the mansion, where everyone celebrates, but they wonder why Ichiro isn't home yet, and he suddenly falls from the ceiling, revealing that he was hiding there to watch Musumi. But Futaba becomes upset, realizing he was the one making the strange noises, so she beats him up, and Ayaka takes a picture of them. A few days later, Tai sees an old man in his bag, who reveals that he didn't want to deal with the traps in the mansion, so he decided to use Tai's bag to get past them. He introduces himself as his grandfather, but Tai freaks out, thinking he's an intruder, and he ends up getting shot. Tai apologizes for shooting him, but Musumi understands why he did this, and she introduces him to her grandfather Ban. He reveals that he's there to see Tai, thinking he's a good husband, and he gives them a wedding gift. He invites Tai to hang out with him, but Ichiro suddenly restrains him, as he mentions that the police told him to arrest Ban because he's an escaped convict. But he explains that he isn't a criminal, saying he was permanently stationed inside the prison to gather intel, and he promises to return after he has some fun. But Ichiro refuses, knowing he shares confidential information just to impress women, so he challenges Ichiro to stop him as he covers the area with smoke, allowing him to escape with Tai. Ichiro calls Tai, telling him that Ban is a legendary spy who is known for his ability to infiltrate facilities and escape difficult situations. Ichiro orders Tai to capture him, so Tai observes him as he tries to impress the women, and he starts sharing state secrets. So Tai decides to stop him, but he easily escapes, and he tells Tai that he's too young to capture him. But Ban realizes that Tai was able to glue him in place, so he removes his clothes, saying only a beautiful woman can stop him. He tells Tai to bring it on, so he tries to capture him, but Tai ends up failing, and Ban tells him he needs more training. He asks Ban why he broke out of prison just to see him, so Ban explains that he had to do it today, but he knows that Tai is too young to understand him. A bartender gives him a drink, and he tries to give it to Tai, but he refuses, saying he's still a minor. So Ban calls him a beta, thinking he'll never have a child with Musumi, and Ban offers to teach him, but he says he isn't interested. Ban reveals that he was lonely before he met his wife Keiko, saying she was the one who gave his life purpose, but he thinks she's too good for him. He believes Tai is just like him, so he advises him to enjoy the present, saying it will allow him to live life without regrets. But Tai explains that he will have no regrets, because he enjoys every moment he spends with Musumi, and he wants her to feel the same way. Ban wants to spend more time with him, but an old lady approaches Ban, and she makes him wear a handcuff, saying it will explode if he tries to break it. He realizes she's Keiko, and he's glad that he's able to see her again, so he invites her to go out with him, reminding her it's their anniversary, but she tells him to return to prison. The cops take Ben away, and Tai realizes that he broke out of prison to see Keiko, saying he understands how he feels. We learn that Musumi was watching Tai while he was talking to Ban, and she realizes she's lucky to have him as her husband. They return to the mansion, where they learn that Ban was able to go on a date with Keiko, and Tai thinks he's amazing. After some time, Ban returns to the mansion, saying he broke out of prison again, but he realizes that everyone's gone, and Ayaka tells him they went on a shopping trip. We see the siblings in a mall, and they decide to split up, as Tai recalls that he used to go there when his family was still alive. Musumi uses a gacha machine, and he thinks she's being childish, but it gives her hand grenades, and he can't believe this just happened. She approaches a shopkeeper, and she orders a strange drink, so the shopkeeper asks her about the mode of payment, saying she can pay with her blood. But she receives bullets, as she reveals that she used code names to make the order, saying the mall sells equipment for spies. So Tai buys a bulletproof shirt, and he's about to meet Musumi, but he notices a girl named Suzu, who is looking for her father. He decides to bring her with him, and Musumi asks her about her father, so she explains that he was taken by a group of thugs, who told him they need to talk downstairs. Musumi takes them to an elevator, where she enters a code, as she reveals that the mall has a secret basement floor, where the merchants sell illegal products. Tai realizes it looks scary, and Musumi warns him to stay alert, because he could end up getting attacked. They see Suzu's father, as a thug threatens to kill him, but Tai saves him, and Suzu reunites with her father. But they suddenly get surrounded by thugs, who mention that Tai has a bounty on his head. They prepare to take him down, but they suddenly get blown away, as Ichiro arrives, telling him it's time to go home. But he becomes confused, wondering why Ichiro is helping him, and he realizes that Ichiro bought a book about torture, realizing he wants to try it on him. The thugs recognize Ichiro, knowing he's extremely skilled, but they know he's outnumbered, so they think they can take him on. But his siblings suddenly arrive, taking out the thugs, and they head out, as the basement starts collapsing. Everyone realizes the mall is sinking, but the siblings walk away, as Tai mentions that they destroyed the basement. But nobody cares, and Ichiro insults him, but Futaba knocks him out, and they all head back to the mansion. We see Tai playing with his brother, and his mother tells him he spends too much time playing video games. She tells his father to spend more time with his family, because he's always working, and he tells everyone they're going to go camping, but he mentions that it's raining. The car suddenly crashes, and Tai is the only one who survives, but he wakes up, realizing he still can't get over the death of his family. Shion finishes analyzing the device given by Kurogawa, and she reveals that it contains the guest list for her parents' wedding. She mentions that Tai's parents attended the event, but Musumi tells him to leave her, because she thinks her family got them killed. But Tai tells her not to jump to conclusions, saying he wants to be with her no matter what happens. He asks Shion to help him discover the truth, and she explains that they don't have enough information, but she's surprised that they were able to find the list, because it's supposed to be confidential. She thinks the underworld might be involved, so she suggests going to the Library of the Dead, where he can find information about people who vanished without a trace. Tai follows Shion's advice, and we learn that the library is sponsored by the Spy Association, so he can enter it using his license, but she warns him to be careful. He sees a man laughing, but the librarian suddenly kills him, telling him to keep his voice down. So Tai realizes the place is dangerous, as Shion reveals that the librarian's name is Mei, and she kills anyone who makes a noise inside the library. Shion tells him he's going to be fine as long as he remains silent, but Mei has superhuman senses, so even a faint noise can get him killed. Shion lowers the volume of his earphones, and he starts searching the area, as he tries to avoid making a sound. He sees a book about his parents, and he reads it, realizing it doesn't contain information about what caused the accident. But he sees a slot for the storage device, so he inserts the marble, realizing it's actually a key, and it reveals the truth about his family. He learns that they were targeted by an organization called Tenopo, and everyone thinks he's dead. But the book detects unauthorized access, so it self-destructs, and Shion warns him he's in danger, because Mei is coming for him. So he gets down, allowing him to avoid her attack, and he shoots an electrical outlet, causing a blackout, and he tries to escape. But he realizes that she can still track his movements, as she explains that she can hear the sound of his soul, and she prepares to kill him. Shion mentions that he can't beat her, but Musumi tells him to remove his earphones, and he obeys her instructions, as Musumi turns up the volume and screams as loud as she can. Mei is overwhelmed by the sound, and she collapses, as Tai thanks Musumi, realizing that Mei can't handle loud noises. Tai returns to the mansion, where he gets tortured by Ichiro, but he asks him about Tanopo. So Ichiro reveals that they're an extremely dangerous organization, and they were the ones who killed Musumi's mother. He knows they're after Musumi, so he's trying to track them down, but he can't find information about them, and the only thing he knows is that they all have the same tattoo. But he thinks Tai's family could provide clues, because he knows they were killed by Tanopo, so he checks their background, realizing Tai's father worked in a hospital, so he looks into the medical industry. He discovers that 15 health workers died within a month, and they're all connected to a doctor named Makoto, so Ichiro sees him as a person of interest. Tai disguises himself as a patient, so that he can infiltrate Makoto's clinic, and Musumi also wears a disguise, saying she will act as his over-supportive wife. They enter the clinic, but Tai mentions that he feels heavy because Ichiro placed weights on his body, so that he will move like an old man. They meet Makoto, who gives him a proper checkup, saying he appears to be healthy, and Tai notes that he seems like a good doctor. Musumi starts feeding him, but he tells Musumi he can feed himself, saying nobody's around, but she tells him they can't let their guard down. She mentions that she wants to have a peaceful life with him, so that they can spend more time with each other before they pass away, and he notes that he wants her to be with him during his final moments, saying he doesn't know what to do without her. She's happy to hear this, but he realizes he was thinking out loud, so he tells her he didn't say anything. That evening, Makoto heads out, and Tai sees his chance. So he sneaks into Makoto's office, and he goes through his records, thinking it looks suspicious, so he uses Shion's program, and he's able to open a document from Tanopo, which is about a project they're working on. He realizes it's connected to Musumi's family, and we learn that his siblings are talented, because there's a special protein called somian in their mother's blood, which grants them superhuman abilities. Tanopo knows that it can be used to strengthen others, so they're planning to use it as a doping agent, but it can't be created synthetically, so the only way to acquire it is by taking Musumi's heart. But Makoto suddenly returns, and he attacks Tai, removing his mask. Makoto can't believe he's still alive, thinking he's supposed to be dead, and he asks Makoto if he killed his family. But he refuses to answer, saying nobody can stop them, as Tai sees the tattoo on his neck. He stabs Tai, but it hits Ichiro's weights, and Tai kicks him away, saying he will protect Musumi as he fires his gun, but he realizes Makoto is immune to his attack. He presses a button, and Tai is blinded by a flash of light, as Makoto uses the opportunity to escape with his computer. But Tai reveals that he already extracted the information, and he plans to expose Tanopo so that he can protect Musumi. Tai checks the information, but he realizes that it's difficult to locate Tanopo's headquarters. He sees receipts from a hotel called Dandelion, so he looks it up, thinking it looks suspicious. Meanwhile, Makoto reports to the other members of Tanopo, and he tells them about his encounter with Tai. He knows that Tai is Musumi's husband, thinking he's going to keep pursuing them, and Makoto mentions that he wants to try something when he gets the chance. The next day, Tai wakes up on a boat, so he panics, wondering how he got there. Ichiro greets him, saying he took them to the Pacific Ocean because he wants to spend time with him. They go fishing, and Tai is able to catch a fish, as Ichiro gives him advice, but he freaks out, wondering why Ichiro is so friendly with him. Tai thinks he's planning to throw him into the ocean, but Ichiro tells him there's no need to be suspicious, because he just wants to give him an offering for pouring his soul into training. Tai suddenly catches a man, who boards the ship, trying to kill him. So he fights back, knocking the man out, and Ichiro tells him this is part of his training, revealing that he used to do it with Futaba when he was a kid. But he explains that the man really wanted to kill Tai, showing him a flyer he distributed to lure enemies in. Several bounty hunters appear, as Ichiro reminds Tai that he's still at the bronze rank, telling him the others were able to get to silver when they were still in grade school. Ichiro mentions that the drill is supposed to be easy, but he can understand why Tai is struggling to complete it, saying he's just an ordinary person. But he explains that he can handle it because he was trained by their siblings, and he manages to overpower his opponents. But everyone sees a torpedo approaching, so they panic and it hits the boat, blowing it into pieces. Tai saves the bounty hunters, wondering who fired the torpedo, and he sees the symbol of Tanopo, as Ichiro explains that they have an unmanned fighter in the ocean, which protects their smuggling route. He tells Tai that they have connections from all over the world, so even the best spies would struggle against them, telling Tai to back down, because he doesn't stand a chance. But he explains that he doesn't care, because he's willing to do whatever it takes to protect Musumi, and Ichiro tells him they're on the same page. He throws him away, and as Tai dives into the water, he sees another torpedo, so he wraps his wires around it, but it pulls him away. Ichiro tells him it's going to kill the bounty hunters in 30 seconds, saying he's been sacrificing himself to protect others, but now that he's a professional spy, he needs to remember his training. So he uses Shinzo's knife to open the outer shell, and he remembers his siblings' advice, as he uses a device to disable the torpedo. It rises to the surface, and the bounty hunters thank him, knowing he just saved their lives. We see the sub that fired the torpedo, as the operators wonder why it didn't explode. They suddenly see Ichiro approaching, and he tells them their weapons can't defeat his family, as he slices the sub into pieces. After that, Ichiro reveals that the Dandelion Hotel has links to Tanopo, saying Seiji gave him a tip, which mentions that Makoto is staying in his suite. So Tai decides to investigate it, as Ichiro tells him that Shinzo is on his way to help. Ichiro thinks Tanopo is confident in their ability to fight back, and he warns Tai that he's going to get killed if he gets caught. Tai tries to use the elevator, but it scans him, and he gets punched away, as an employee tells him that only VIPs are allowed to take the elevator to the suite floor. So he tries using his gecko gloves to climb the building, but he sees a couple fighting, and he ends up getting hit. So he falls off the building, and he lands in the pool, but he panics, realizing he almost died. He suddenly hears a woman ordering an employee to take her pet to the suite room, so he comes up with a plan. We cut to Makoto, as he talks to the owner of the hotel named No Man. He reveals that he brought the latest batch, saying it's an improved version with less side effects, but Tai suddenly arrives, telling them to surrender. But they see him disguised as a cat, so they become confused. Makoto recognizes his voice, telling him he doesn't have time to fight him, and a helicopter arrives, as No Man destroys the glass, throwing it at Tai. He knocks him back, recognizing him as the husband of Musumi, and Makoto uses the opportunity to escape. No Man decides to use the product Makoto gave him, as he mentions that he owes Makoto his life, so he can't allow Tai to interfere. He tells Tai about Tanopo's new product called the Hazakura, saying it contains a substance which mimics Somian, and it gives its users superhuman powers. He uses the Hazakura, and his body suddenly starts growing. He destroys Tai's revolver, and punches him away, saying he feels bad for Tai, because he's about to die when he's still so young. But No Man realizes he's still alive, and he's impressed that he was able to land a hit. But his body regenerates, as he explains that besides superhuman strength and durability, he also has the ability to heal, but it's still inferior compared to the powers of Musumi's siblings. He's about to kill Tai, but the ground suddenly starts shaking, as Shinzo arrives, and he blasts No Man with a laser beam. No Man gets back up, recognizing him as a gold-rank spy, and he brings out his weapons, shooting No Man repeatedly. He attaches a device to Tai, and throws him off the building, so he starts to panic, but the device activates, and it deploys a parachute. Shinzo promises to take care of No Man, who suddenly charges in, but Shinzo manages to match his strength. He reveals that he has a detonator in his tooth, threatening to kill everyone in the hotel if Shinzo doesn't surrender. So he stops resisting, and No Man starts pummeling him, creating earthquakes with each attack. But we see that he's still standing, and he explains that he was just waiting for something to happen. No Man suddenly hears his employees reporting a terrorist attack, as Tai scares everyone away, so they immediately evacuate the hotel. No Man's employee reports that everyone was able to escape, so Shinzo punches him away, saying the Hazakura will never match the powers of his siblings. He brings out his ultimate weapon, and he reveals that it's an electric gun, which is difficult to use because of its complex build, so he's the only one in his family who can fire it. He charges up the weapon, and No Man thinks it won't work on him, because he can easily dodge it. but the floor suddenly starts to crumble as Shinzo reveals that Tai was able to hack the detonator in the camera, telling no man he lost because he underestimated Tai. Shinzo fires his weapon, and a lightning strikes no man, knocking him out, as Makoto notes that he has served his purpose because he was able to gather data during the fight. Shinzo reports that he has defeated no man, telling Tai it's time to regroup, but he suddenly falls, and a strange man catches him, asking him if he's okay. He wonders why the man didn't evacuate, but the man walks away, telling Tai to take care of himself because he can't protect people with a weak body. Shinzo arrives, and he thanks Tai for helping him during the fight, but he suddenly realizes that Tai is bleeding and he collapses due to his injuries. They return to the mansion, as Nano reveals that Tai has been shot multiple times, saying it's a miracle he's still alive, but he won't be regaining consciousness anytime soon. Ichiro starts drawing on his head, so Futaba beats him up, and Nano tells him to stay away from Tai. Musumi tells her siblings to leave, saying Tai needs to rest, and Nano gives her medical equipment in case anything happens. We see Ichiro enjoying a cup of tea when Shinzo joins him, saying he wants to talk to him. Ichiro thinks he's feeling guilty, so he tells him not to be so hard on himself, but Shinzo explains that there's another issue, saying he can't believe what he just saw, because Tai suddenly started bleeding in front of him. He knows he has superhuman hearing, but he didn't hear anyone shoot Tai, so he thinks Tai was already attacked before he got there, but his body's reaction was delayed. Shinzo knows it sounds ridiculous, but he knows someone capable of doing it. The alarm suddenly rings, and Musumi is confused, wondering why it's making a strange sound. So Shion tells her it's an intruder alarm, and it's trying to tell them that there are over 1,000 enemies approaching. We see the Hazakura battalion gathering outside, as one of them thinks about rushing in, but their captain named Yama tells him not to disrupt the order. Makoto tells Yama to go easy on them, so he explains that he's just keeping them in check, because they tend to become aggressive due to the side effects of Hazakura. Makoto tells him to do his best, saying they injured Tai, so that they could gather the entire family at the mansion, and he tells them to eliminate Musumi's siblings, giving them the order to attack. So they charge in, as Shion realizes that the mansion's security has been breached, and Futaba thinks the security codes have been leaked. But the invaders encounter Goliath, and he grows into an enormous beast, before going on a rampage. The siblings join him, and they use their powers to take the invaders down, but Futaba realizes they're incredibly durable, because they can withstand her attacks. Nano and Shion realize their attacks are working, but Futaba thinks they just need to keep moving forward. The invaders rush in, and they see Ichiro, thinking they can take him on, but his wires stop them, and he tells them they'll never reach the mansion. Goliath continues to attack them, and they think they don't stand a chance, but Yama tells them to press on. He reveals that normal people only have a 3% Hazakura compatibility rate, and No Man's compatibility rate was at 10%, but he still couldn't defeat Shinzo. Yama unleashes his power, revealing that he's 6 times stronger than No Man, and he attacks Goliath, sending him crashing against the mansion. Yama realizes that Ichiro removed his wires because he didn't want to hurt Goliath, but we see that Yama is already in the mansion, realizing the family's greatest weakness is their love for each other. Ichiro threatens to kill him, but he suddenly hears a noise in his speaker as the strange man activates hibernation, which surrounds the mansion with walls. Yama is able to escape from Ichiro, and Futaba appears, saying she recognizes the man's voice. Ichiro knows that hibernation can only be disabled with the head's ring, so he tells her to deal with the Hazakura battalion, saying he's going to take the ring from the previous head. Meanwhile, Musumi realizes the mansion lost power, and she knows something's wrong, so she tries to contact her siblings, but her phone has no signal. She realizes that Tai's condition is deteriorating, so she's afraid he's going to die, and she knows she needs to do something fast. She searches around the room, and she finds a syringe, preparing to use it to extract her blood. She recalls how her mother told her that the blood of the head has a special power, but she should only use it to help the people she cares about. She manages to extract her blood, and she gives it to Tai, hoping her plan works, because his life is on the line. Yama enters the room, and he's about to take her away, but Tai suddenly stops him, telling him not to touch her. Tai shoots him, but it doesn't work, and he charges in, but Tai kicks him away. He notes that he feels strange, because his body feels light, and Yama's movements are incredibly slow, so he knows he can take him on. He manages to land a hit, which pushes Yama back, but he suddenly starts struggling, as Yama tells him that the Somian is activating the cells in his body, but it's destroying his brain, and Yama reveals that Hazakura kills the people who can't tolerate it. But Musumi hugs him, telling him to calm down and stay focused. He tells her to escape, but she doesn't want to leave him behind, saying she will take her life if he ends up dying, so that Tanopo won't be able to use her blood. She tells him to focus on her voice, and gives him advice on how to control his powers. But Yama throws her away, and he prepares to smash Tai, but he manages to stop it, and he strikes back, blowing a hole into Yama's body. He wonders why he can't regenerate, and he calls Tai a monster as he falls to the ground. We return to Ichiro as he heads to the woods, where he meets the strange man, calling him his father. Ichiro asks him to return the ring, but he's glad to see that his children are doing well, and he mentions that Tai has awakened a new power. But Ichiro asks him why he's working with Tanopo to make Tai stronger, knowing Musumi would never use her blood on Tai. So Ichiro thinks his father injured Tai, and planned everything in the attack, so that she would be forced to give Tai her blood. Ichiro asks him why he did it, but he explains that he just wants a strong husband for his daughter, and he mentions that he has achieved his goal, so he decides it's time to leave. But Ichiro tells him he hasn't changed, telling him to stay away from Tai and Musumi, as he unleashes a powerful attack, which cuts down everything in its path. Musumi is happy that Tai made it, but she becomes worried, thinking her blood could kill him, so he hugs her, thanking her for saving his life. Shion interrupts them, revealing that she was able to rebuild their old emergency hotline, so she can contact them even without signal. She tells them to stand by, as Futaba blows away the Hazakura battalion, telling her siblings to clean the yard. Shion tells Kendo to lure the enemies to a trap, so that they can all be captured at once, and he disguises himself as Musumi. He starts running away, as the enemies chase after him, and he leads them to Nano. They surround him, thinking it's all over for him, but Nano smashes the ground, as he jumps away with Kendo, and the Hazakura battalion falls into a pit, as Shinzo traps them in a giant ball. They try to break out, but they realize that they can't destroy it, and Futaba spins them around, and then blows them away. We see that Ichiro's attack didn't work, because his father was able to catch all the wires, reminding him that he was the one who taught him how to fight. But Ichiro still manages to restrain his father, telling him to surrender his ring, and he mentions that he's proud of his children, as Ichiro takes his ring. The hibernation is deactivated, and everyone's glad that Musumi and Tai made it, but they wonder how Tai has already recovered, because he was in critical condition. He suddenly goes berserk, so everyone restrains him, as Nano mentions that he's experiencing the side effects of Somian. Ichiro explains that it awakened all of the cells in his body, but it's extremely difficult to control, because the body and mind are unable to handle the blitz of excessive information. Tai manages to overpower them, but Ichiro restrains him, and gives him Shion's headphones, thinking he will calm down after he hears Musumi singing. The siblings think Ichiro is insane, but he wants to hear her sing, and she decides to do it for Tai, but her voice is so bad that even the birds can't handle it. Tai calms down, and he immediately recovers, saying he heard a sound which made him think the world was about to end. Futaba asks Ichiro why he helped Tai, knowing he likes to make him suffer, but he explains that he just did it on a whim. The next day, Tai wakes up, realizing his body still hurts, and he remembers his fight with Yama. He heads to the restroom, and he checks his eye, realizing it still looks different. Nano approaches Musumi, giving her a recipe she can use to help Tai recover, but he wonders if she's going to be okay, telling her it looks dangerous. Tai joins them, saying he was able to get enough sleep, but he still feels pain, so Nano tells him to rest longer, but he explains that he needs to go to school. Musumi tells Nano to join him, but he thinks Nano is going to stand out because of his body, so she explains that he can change his appearance, and he uses a drug, which returns him to his original form. Tai walks to school with Nano, who explains that his powers are difficult to control, so he prefers to use his mutated body while he's at home, because it allows him to live a more stable life. He reveals that he only uses his drug whenever he needs to go to school, so he can look like a normal kid. But his body suddenly starts to transform, as Tai wonders if he's going to be okay. Later that day, we see Tai hanging out with his friends, when he receives a call from Nano, who tells him to go to the biology lab. So he heads to the lab, where he sees Nano mutating, and he asks Tai to inject him with medicine. so he does as he says, and Nano's body becomes stable, but a girl named Sato suddenly arrives, asking him if he's sick. She uses her head to check his temperature, realizing he has no fever, but he becomes flustered, and he heats up, as she tells him he has a cold, so he needs to go to the infirmary. After she leaves, he tells Tai that she's the president of the biology club, but she doesn't like humans, so he tells Tai to leave her alone. He wonders if Nano is going to be okay, and he starts eating pills, but his body becomes unstable again, so he recites a strange line, as Tai asks him what it means. So he explains that it's the base sequence of his DNA, saying it's the same with all living creatures, so reciting it makes him feel like a normal person. But he thinks he has reached the end of the line, so he thinks about injecting himself with a permanent vaccine so that his body will never become unstable again. But he mentions that he won't be able to use his current form again, so he can't return to school. Tai knows that he has friends, and he doesn't want him to abandon them, so he stops him, saying he will help him preserve a normal life. We see Nano in his class, but his body suddenly transforms, so Tai uses a dart to save him, and he thanks Tai for his help. Sato returns to the biology lab, preparing to feed the animals, but her snake suddenly eats a drug dropped by Nano, which causes it to transform. Meanwhile, we see Futaba with Rin, as they discuss the recent attack, and Rin wonders when Tanopa will give up on hunting Musumi. She offers to help Futaba, and Shinzo arrives with food prepared by Musumi. We return to Nano, who thanks Tai for looking after him, but he sees animals from the lab, and he hears a girl screaming. So they rush to her, and they realize that all of the animals have escaped from the lab. Nano sees Sato, and he checks her pulse, realizing she's still alive. But he sees a scale, thinking it looks abnormal, and he realizes that her snake ate his drug, so he blames himself for what's happening. She regains consciousness, saying she needs to save her snake, and she runs away, as Tai tells him to go after her. We see Nano and Sato searching around the campus, as Nano notes that the environment is conducive to cell stimulation. The snake suddenly attacks them, so he saves Sato, and he notes that it appears to be confused. So he runs away with her, as it chases after them, but she loses her footing, and he realizes that it's all his fault. So he approaches the snake, and he allows it to bite him, as he transforms his arm, revealing that his mutated cells can neutralize the drug. The snake returns to normal, but Nano suddenly disappears, as Sato wonders what just happened. We see Tai carrying Nano, and they head to the rooftop, where Nano's body becomes unstable again, so he thinks about using his vaccine, saying it's all over, because Sato saw him transform. Tai tries to change his mind, but he pushes Tai back, saying he can no longer control his strength. He's about to inject the vaccine, but Tai manages to stop him, telling him to use his chant to calm down. So he starts reciting it, and he's able to control the mutation, as Tai assures him that he will always be there for him. Sato appears, and she reveals that she's been listening the entire time. She can't believe Nano is capable of metamorphosis, and they realize that she came up with her own unique interpretation. She realizes that Tai is close to Nano, so he becomes nervous, because people aren't supposed to find out that they're siblings. But she thinks he just wants to join the biology club, and she welcomes him, telling him it's time to fill out his application. Before she leaves, she tells Nano to stay in the club, because she needs his help, and he's glad she wants him by her side. Tai and Nano return to the mansion, but they realize that everyone has been knocked out. They're surprised to see Rin, and Musumi appears, so Tai asks her what happened. She explains that she tried Nano's recipe, thinking it would help Tai recover, but when the others tasted it, they ended up blacking out. She thinks it's just a side effect, and they're going to wake up fully recovered, but they wonder why Rin is still okay, and Musumi thinks it's because she never gets tired. She tells Tai and Nano to try it, but they already know what's going to happen, so Nano decides to create an antidote immediately. Tai has a sparring match with Shinzo, but he loses his footing, and Shinzo delivers the finishing blow. He tells Tai that swordsmanship is all about balance, and Somi intends to go to his eyes and hands, but it's more effective if he focuses on his senses. Shinzo decides to give a demonstration, and he overpowers Tai by attacking him with ridiculous speed. He tells Tai that he still isn't used to his powers, so he shouldn't use it for too long, and Ichiro joins them, telling him to wield his power with purpose because it will make him stronger. Shinzo gives him a training regimen, but he thinks it's too brutal, and Ichiro tells them he's heading overseas to complete a mission. But Musumi suddenly appears, and she reveals that she took part in a raffle, where she won tickets to the endless hell hot springs. They return to the mansion, where Musumi tells Tai about the hot springs, saying it's a resort for members of the underworld. But they realize that Ichiro is depressed, because he's the only one in the family who can't join them. He tells her he's going to ditch his mission, but Futaba hits him, telling him to fulfill his duties, so he throws a tantrum, saying he needs to protect Musumi from perverts. But she promises to spend time with him next time, and wishes him the best of luck, so he decides to be quick with his mission. But before he leaves, he warns Tai not to bathe with her, or else he will kill him. They make their way to the hot springs, as Shion mentions that she knows a shortcut, but Shinzo panics, as their car falls into a lake. Tai thinks they're going to die, but she transforms the car into a sub, as she explains that it's impossible to reach the hot springs by normal means. They go through a cave, and they eventually reach their destination, but Tai realizes that it's filled with dangerous people. Futaba tells him not to worry, because the guests aren't allowed to fight each other on the premises, but a man recognizes them, and Shinzo recalls that Ichiro beat him up during one of his missions. The man prepares to fight, but the hostess named Emma stops him, asking him if he forgot about the rules, so he decides to leave. Futaba recognizes her, telling her Ichiro can't join them because he's on a mission, and she introduces Tai as Musumi's husband. Emma shows them their rooms, and Shinzo and Kengo rush in, as Nano explains that fighting over the chairs by the window is a family tradition. Nano asks Shinzo if he can take the spot, and Shinzo can't resist his cuteness, so he allows Nano to sit as long as he likes. Kengo calls Shinzo a loser, and Tai mentions that he remembers his little brother, who enjoyed sitting by the window, so the brothers start crying, as they tell him to take a seat. We cut to Musumi, as Futaba asks her if she's going to tell Tai something important, so she realizes that Futaba was onto her. She thinks this is the right moment, and she tells her not to worry, because she believes Tai will accept it. Everyone gathers at the banquet hall, where the siblings enjoy their meals, but the man blames them for destroying his organization, and he pours his beer on Futaba. But she suddenly starts laughing, saying it tastes great, and she throws the man around, as her siblings realize she's drunk, so Tai escapes with Musumi, as the others try to stop her. Tai takes Musumi to her room, as she tells him they have a private bath, and she invites him to join her. We see Emma escorting Ichiro to the banquet hall, as he reveals that he has already completed his mission, because he wants to protect Musumi. But as they reach the hall, they realize that everyone's fighting, and the siblings are surprised to see Ichiro. Tai joins Musumi in the private bath, as she reminds him that they're already married, so he shouldn't be embarrassed. She reveals that she used to bathe with her brothers when she was little, and they hear a commotion, as they realize that Futaba is still on a rampage. He explains that he's enjoying the moment, but she mentions that she needs to tell him something, as she stands up, so he becomes flustered. But he realizes that she has a scar on her chest, as she reveals that she was abducted by Tanopo, and they almost removed her heart, because they know it's filled with somian. They wanted to use it to produce thousands of superhumans, but she knows that it would cause suffering, because the body needs to be weakened before it can adapt to her blood. This explains how Tai was able to gain his powers without any major side effects, and she tells him she was out of options, so she was forced to give him her blood. But she knows that her father set everything up, because he wanted Tai to acquire the family's powers. She recalls that he promised to save her mother, but she doesn't know why he's been acting strange, thinking everything about him is a mystery. Tai thinks they should meet him so that they can understand him better, but Shinzo suddenly crashes into the pool, and he tells them to run, as Ichiro arrives, threatening to kill Tai. But Futaba saves him, saying she's finally sobering up, and Ichiro challenges her to a pillow fight. But everyone suddenly surrounds him, and they gang up on him, but he manages to stop them. Shion uses her minigun, and she fires countless pillows, but he slices through them, and Kengo transforms into Musumi, so Ichiro becomes distracted. He restrains Ichiro, as everyone charges in, attacking him with their pillows. The next day, we see that they were able to defeat Ichiro, so they celebrate, thinking their victory will go down in history. We see Oga and Sui as they infiltrate a Tanopo facility, and they enter the storage area, realizing it was used to store Hazakura, but it's already empty. Oga sees a bomb, and it detonates, destroying the facility, as Makoto watches from a distance, saying he's glad that everyone's doing well. Oga and Sui are able to escape, and they realize that Tanopo is one step ahead of them, thinking the information they gathered was outdated. Meanwhile, Ayaka tells Musumi that the Hinagiku have been helping them investigate, but they still can't find clues about Tanopo. She mentions that Tanopo appears to be transporting something on a regular basis, thinking it's Hazakura. She explains that they can't pinpoint the destination, but they were able to figure out the routes, and the siblings have started their investigation. We cut to a train, where we see Musumi's father drinking with Makoto. He takes a box of steamed dumplings, and he opens it, as everyone mentions that it smells weird. Tai is working as a porter, and he struggles to perform his duties, realizing that he can't open the train's windows. He takes a break, as he mentions that nobody looks suspicious, so he wonders if Tanopo is using the train as a transport. We learn that he's been looking into Musumi's father, whose name is revealed to be Momo, but he can't find information about him because the records say he's already dead. The train suddenly shakes, and he loses his revolver, so he becomes depressed, as he recalls that Shinzo just finished modifying it. He heads back into the train, and he sees a girl looking out the window, so he tells her to be careful. She gives him his revolver, saying she saw him drop it, so she rushed to retrieve it, but she ended up breaking the glass. She introduces herself as Shirai, but a passenger suddenly calls him. So he excuses himself, and she starts complaining about the window in her room, because it won't open, saying the entire train is covered in smoke. He realizes that something's wrong, because smoke isn't coming out of the train, and the passengers appear to be disoriented, so he thinks the train has been modified. He checks the air quality, and he realizes that the entire train is filled with poison gas. He heads to the dining area, and he uses his revolver to destroy the windows, so everyone runs away, as he notes that the air quality has improved. He realizes that there are still passengers in the room, and one of them explains that they were using an odorless gas to make everyone hallucinate. They're revealed to be Momo and Makoto, and Tai recognizes Momo because of the description his siblings gave him, realizing he was the one who attacked him in the hotel. So Tai recognizes him as his father-in-law, introducing himself as Musumi's husband, and he prepares to give him a proper greeting. Meanwhile, Shion reveals that she's been searching for Tai, and she found a picture of Momo and Makoto in the train. Musumi is worried, because she can't contact him, and Futaba receives a call from Rin, who talks to her about a case they're handling. But she tells Rin that everyone's busy, saying they need to rescue Tai. We return to the train, as Shirai interrupts Tai, and Momo appears behind him, giving him advice on how to hold the revolver. Tai tries to shoot him, but Shirai uses her hair to restrain him, as Makoto reveals that she's 100% compatible with Hazakura, saying he wants to gather data by watching them fight. He reveals that their plan was to scatter the siblings by giving them fake intel, and he's glad that they were able to lure Tai onto the train. Makoto thanks him for playing right into their hands, and Momo tells him to let Musumi's blood guide him. Makoto wonders what he's up to, but he refuses to say anything, and Makoto reveals that he's jealous, as he mentions that Momo can do whatever he wants, because someone important is indulging him. Shirai helps them escape, and she tries to crush Tai, but he activates his powers, and he manages to break free. He charges in, avoiding her attacks, but she manages to grab him, and she throws him away. She reveals that her hair contains a catalyst that acts like Somian, and it allows her to move the fibers of her hair at a 100% load factor. She thinks he doesn't stand a chance, because he lacks fighting experience, and she mentions that Hazakura grants power to anyone who desires it. She explains that she acquired her powers 10 years ago, revealing that her health was declining, and Hazakura changed her life. But she reveals that it comes at a price, saying a human body can only tolerate Hazakura at a 100% load for 10 years, and she knows that she's going to suffer a painful death when her body reaches its limit. Tai asks her why she went that far, so she explains that it's because of her strong desire to live, saying Tanopo helps people by giving strength to those who desire it, and she's willing to do anything to help them reach their goal. She tells him he needs to stop the train, or Tanopo is going to swallow up everything, and she attacks him, but he manages to close the distance, and he throws her away. He charges up his revolver, but she uses her hair to defend herself, and she pushes him back, telling him her hair blocks electricity. So he decides to change his fighting style, and he transforms his revolver into a sword, thinking he needs to defeat her to protect Musumi. She attacks him, but he rushes forward, slicing through her hair, and he prepares to stun her using his weapon. But she manages to push him back, telling him it doesn't matter if he cuts off her hair, because it will keep growing back. She continues to attack him as he struggles to defend himself, but he suddenly realizes that she's trying to communicate with her hair. She explains that she's using her hair to simulate words because she doesn't want Makoto to find out that she's about to tell him the truth, revealing that his family died because of her. In a flashback, we see Shirai in a hospital as Tai's parents visit her, wishing her a happy birthday. They give her son earrings as a gift, and they tell her to keep fighting, saying they're happy that she's about to be released from the hospital. Makoto joins them, and Tai's father thanks him for the clinical trial that healed her. Tai's parents leave, and Makoto realizes that they gave her a gift, so he thinks they must really like her, thinking she's like family to them. After some time, we see Shirai being released from the hospital, as Tai's parents tell her to enjoy her life, and she's glad to have them by her side. But one evening, she returns to the hospital, and Makoto tells her she's making great progress, saying he needs to show her something. He takes her to the morgue, where he reveals that thousands of test subjects died within 2 years after they were given Hazakura. But he explains that its side effects seem to complement her illness, thinking this is the reason why she's the only one who survived with 100% compatibility. So she freaks out, but he reminds her that his research saved her life, saying it can also be used to save other people. She wonders what happened to Tai's parents, so he explains that he has decided to get rid of them because he doesn't want the public to learn about his research. He explains that sacrifices need to be made, telling her to take care of her life, and he welcomes her to Tanopo. We return to the present, as Shirai reveals that her son earrings have been modified, so it now has GPS, and he can use it to track the other members of Tanopo. She thinks she has no right to wear it, because she got his parents killed, and she tells him she has a request, telling him to find a clue that will help him protect his siblings. She launches him to the air, and he recalls the moment when his mother saved a girl from drowning. The girl's father thanks her, and he apologizes for ruining her precious family time, but she explains that she's a nurse, so saving lives is normal for her. Tai loved everyone in his family, so he was depressed when he lost them, thinking they died because he was too weak to protect them. Back in the present, Shirai tells him she needs to retreat, but he suddenly attacks her, as Makoto realizes that his stats are increasing. Momo explains that he has lost control, saying the amount of Somian is altered by someone's emotions, and Tai's Somian has increased to the point where he can no longer control it, so it will destroy his body in a few minutes. He goes berserk, and he tries to attack Shirai, but she restrains him, saying she has finished extracting data from him, and she prepares to finish him off. He thinks he has failed his family, but he remembers Musumi, knowing he needs to protect her from Tanopo. So he grabs onto Shirai's hair, and he breaks free, but she thinks he won't be able to do anything because he can't control his powers. But he cuts his leg, and Momo mentions that it's called bloodletting, knowing he's doing it to remove the excess buildup of Somian. He wants to protect his new family, so he charges up his sword, as he prepares to use his ultimate technique. He rushes forward, and Shirai tries to stop him with everything she has, but he manages to overpower her with his ultimate move. She loses her earrings, thinking she has lost everything, as she recalls that Tai's parents used to take care of her, but she had to sacrifice them because of her desire to live. She's about to fall, but Tai catches her, and he returns one of her earrings, saying his parents used to talk about her. He explains that he doesn't blame her for their deaths, because Tanopo was just using her, and he thanks her for holding onto her earrings, saying she's helping him protect his new family. She passes away, and Tai decides to stop the train, but he suddenly gets attacked, as a girl named Aya appears. A man named Mizuki arrives, telling her she should have aimed for the head, and he reveals that Makoto sent them to retrieve Shirai's body. He starts strangling Tai, telling him he's no longer needed, but Futaba and Rin suddenly appear to save him, so Aya rushes to attack them, but Rin blows her away. Mizuki catches her, telling her to focus on their mission, as he mentions that Futaba and Rin are experts in hand-to-hand combat, but he thinks they're no match for his powers, as he uses his poison gas. But Rin throws Futaba with ridiculous force, and she cuts through the poison, before destroying the train with her bare hands. They're able to rescue Tai, as Mizuki escapes with Shirai, and he takes her to Makoto, who tells them they did a great job. Aya thinks Shirai must have suffered a painful death, but Mizuki tells her to look at Shirai's face, saying she appears to be at peace. Rin thinks they weren't able to obtain intel about Tanopo, but Futaba disagrees, saying she believes in Tai, so she thinks he got what he came for. We see the siblings in the mansion, as Rin tells them that Tanopo's hideout has been discovered, saying it's on Skeleton Island. She reveals that they were able to find it because of Shirai's earring, and she knows that there's a massive stockpile of Hazakura on the island, so she thinks Tanopo is up to something. She suggests attacking the hideout after a week, and the siblings decide to work with her, knowing they need allies to defeat Tanopo. After that, Tai thinks about his fight with Shirai, realizing he still has much to learn, and Ban suddenly appears, telling him he's there to train him. They head to the training area, as Ban reveals that he used to train there with Momo, thinking Tai would have gotten along with him. Ban wants Tai to get stronger, and he demonstrates his powers, telling Tai that he still has much to learn about Somian, because he's just using it to enhance his physical strength. Ban reveals that it can also be used to control the speed and weight of a bullet, and he explains that Momo used this technique against Tai, saying Momo's bullets are incredibly fast. So he wants Tai to get used to countering bullets, and he suddenly shoots him, but Tai realizes that he isn't injured, as Ban explains that he dialed down the bullet's force so that it won't kill him. He continues to shoot Tai, telling him to use his sword to stop the bullets, so he decides to try it, but he ends up getting hit. Ban tells him he'll be training him for a week so that Tai can get used to his powers, and he's determined to make progress, so Ban decides not to go easy on him. Meanwhile, Ichiro teaches Rin and Seiji how to use his weapon, but Rin ends up cutting her bandages, and we see that she has the symbol of Tanopo. We learn that they kidnapped her and experimented on her body, so she wants to get revenge by wiping them out, saying this is the reason why she founded Hanagiku. Nano sees the same symbol on Oga and Sui, as they explain that they were also test subjects, revealing that Rin rescued them from Tanopo, but many of their companions ended up dying because of the long-term effects of Hazakura. Nano mentions that he has finished analyzing their blood, and he thinks he might be able to fix the damage Hazakura inflicted on their bodies. He thanks them for participating in his research, and Sui reminds him that he once tried to kill him, but Nano mentions that he doesn't mind, saying he won't die that easily. Shion investigates Tanopo, as Kingo visits a man named Hatoda, who reveals that he's working on a new project for Kingo. Shinzo cries as he works on a new weapon, as he reveals that his parents gave him the blueprints, but they weren't able to finish it. Ayaka tells him not to push himself too hard, telling him to take a break, and she gives him his favorite sweets to cheer him up. We see Futaba with Sakiyo, as countless men try to take her down, but as she prepares tea, she creates a whirlwind which blows them away. Sakiyo mentions that it's his first time observing her family's tea ceremony, and she asks him why the other members of the Spy Association didn't join them. So he explains that the gold rank members are busy, but he offers to help her, saying he wants to work with Tai. We see Tai in terrible condition, so Masumi becomes worried, and Ban mentions that they aren't making progress, so he decides to change his teaching method. He knows that Tai hasn't fully awakened his powers, so he decides to tell him about the blooming state, which is when Somian brings out the body's full potential. He reveals that the ability granted by blooming differs from person to person, and he demonstrates his power, saying it allows him to slip through spaces that are impossible to penetrate. He adds that he can use it with a gun, and he shoots the ground, causing water to burst out, as he reveals that he infused the bullet with his power, so it was able to reach the water beneath the mansion. He decides to teach Tai how to use blooming, but he suddenly starts dancing with him, as he explains that he's trying to get him to resonate with his body, because it's the best way to awaken Tai's powers. He suddenly shoots Tai, but he's able to react on time, as Ban notes that he's already close to blooming. Ban thinks about calling it a day, but Tai wants to keep going, saying there's no risk involved. But Ban tells him he's about to experience the real risk, as he decides to shoot Musumi with an extremely powerful bullet. But Tai manages to block it, and he realizes that he has fully awakened his powers. Ban knows that his power is hardening, revealing that the ability granted by blooming is a reflection of a person's humanity, and he reminds Tai that he has always been passive during his past battles. So Ban decided to force him to protect Musumi, knowing it would unlock his full potential, but he becomes upset, telling Ban not to shoot her. But he explains that he did it for his grandchildren, and she reveals that she wasn't really in danger, as Tai realizes it was just a prank. After that, Keiko learns about what happened, and she reprimands Ban and Musumi for manipulating Tai, telling Ban that she won't hug him for a week. She decides to take Musumi to a secret area, which can only be accessed with the head's ring, but Ban chases after her, so she orders Tai to stop him. They reach the deepest part of the mansion, which is revealed to be the head's chamber, and Keiko explains that it was created as a place of refuge. She tells Musumi about the Book of Buds, saying it contains their family's secrets, but she explains that she has never read it because she doesn't know how to unlock it. She adds that they can't open it by force because it was designed to destroy the mansion to protect their family's secrets. She mentions that there will be chaos if the world learns about it, and she asks Musumi if she's willing to sacrifice everything to protect it. So she explains that she's prepared to do anything for the family, and Tai appears with Ban, saying he's finally able to catch him. He hugs Musumi as he reveals that he heard everything, and he tells her he will try to get stronger so that she won't need to make any sacrifices. A week later, we see everyone gathering for a party, and Tai watches a cherry blossom tree as he realizes that his powers are reacting to it. Keiko reveals that it's the family's sacred tree called Tenyu, telling him it has existed since the time of the first head, and it has somian flowing through it. She explains that their tradition is to gather there before important events, and she gives him rolled omelets, but Ban suddenly rushes to her. So Tai becomes frightened, and he realizes that Tsukiyo is behind him as Keiko wonders what he's doing there, because she thought he's busy with his mission. But he explains that he finished early because he wanted to meet Tai, and he hugs him, saying he also made omelets for him. But Ayaka suddenly arrives, telling him not to eat it because it might be poisoned, and she reveals she also made some for him. She starts to argue with Tsukiyo, saying her food tastes better, but Sui tells them to stop, showing them his omelet, and everyone asks Tai which one he wants to eat. But he takes all of them, and he shoves them into his mouth, saying they all taste delicious. Meanwhile, we see Makoto with the other members of Tenopo, and he mentions that they should celebrate because they're about to launch the seed sowing project tomorrow. One of them, named Enuma, mentions that his chicken is still raw, so a girl named Akai uses her powers to cook it. Makoto mentions that his chicken is also raw, but she burns him, so Aya decides to help him, but she accidentally throws her cake at him instead. We return to Tai, as he wonders why everyone's preparing for a concert, so Ban tells him it's a family tradition. Shion starts performing, and we see that she has formed a band with Musumi and Keiko. She sings a song about fighting evil to achieve world peace, as Ichiro and Ban dance with their glow sticks, while Nano joins her on stage, and he starts dancing with Goliath. Her performance comes to an end, but she becomes embarrassed because she didn't want to sing in front of everyone. Shinzo tells her she has a great voice, but she tells him it's his turn to perform. So he forms a band with Ayaka, and they begin their performance, but he starts screaming, as everyone realizes that his voice is terrible. They enjoy the rest of the night together, and before calling it a day, Musumi announces that they will begin their mission tomorrow. She mentions that they have 3 goals, saying the first one is to arrest Makoto and retrieve the Hazakura in his possession. The second goal is to liberate the test subjects at the hideout who are being subjected to Hazakura experiments, and the third one is to unmask the truth about Momo, whose actions are unpredictable. She tells everyone to complete the mission, but Tai suddenly gets captured by Ichiro. He sees a grave, as Ichiro reveals that it belongs to his mother, but he explains that her remains haven't been recovered, and he thinks Tenopo is using her body to develop Hazakura. He tells Tai that they need to complete a secret mission where they will recover his mother's body and give her a proper burial. Tai wonders why Ichiro gave him the mission, so he explains that he doesn't want his siblings to know about it, because they will suffer if they learn what happened to their mother. He tells Tai to complete the mission in case anything happens to him, but Futaba interrupts him, telling him they should play sumo together. Musumi approaches Tai, saying she won't ask him what Ichiro told him, but she tells him she will always be rooting for him. The next day, Makoto reveals that he still has a hangover from last night's party, but a member of Tenopo named Chaka mentions that intruders have been detected. We see Keiko driving the family car, and Tai prepares to jump with his siblings, as Ayaka mentions that she'll be watching over Musumi with Shion. The siblings ride Goliath as they dive to the island, and Chaka mentions that they'll be arriving in 1 minute. Makoto wonders how they were able to find the hideout, so Momo explains that it's because of Shirai, saying he knows what happened during her fight with Tai. Makoto asks him why he didn't tell everyone about it, so he tells them it's because they never asked. Shion reveals that her siblings have entered the hideout's wireless range, so she can now access Tanopo's inside information. She explains that Makoto is hiding in the nerve center of the underground base, and the plan is to use Goliath to destroy the entrance, but she suddenly loses access as Chaka updates the system. Makoto realizes that Akai is gone, so Anuma tells him she left to guard the entrance, but he isn't worried because he knows that she's the strongest member in the team. She tries to burn the siblings, but Futaba uses her finger to control the flames, and she manages to destroy the entrance. The siblings enter the base, as Shion orders Kingo and Nano to rescue the test subjects, while Tai and the others move towards the nerve center. Futaba realizes that reinforcements have arrived, and she tells them to surround the island, but Akai is about to blast Goliath, so he jumps away, and we see that she has already recovered. So Futaba tells Goliath to clear the path for the others, and she prepares to deal with Akai. Akai blasts Futaba with her flames, but it doesn't work, and Makoto tells Chaka to call for reinforcements. But he explains that he can't, and we see Keiko destroying their equipment, so Makoto wonders what they should do next. Anuma realizes that he needs to fight, but he tells everyone he's going to leave them if it gets too dangerous. We see Shinzo and his siblings fighting Makoto's men, but dark spikes suddenly appear as a member of Tanopo named Kurosawa makes his entrance, and he starts attacking them. So Shinzo opens fire, hitting him multiple times, but his bullets don't work, but he tells the others that he'll take care of Kurosawa. So they rush ahead, as he realizes that Kurosawa's body is made of steel, so his guns are useless against him. We return to Futaba, as she tells Akai to surrender, because Makoto is their only target, but she mentions that she has nothing to lose, and she enters her blooming state. She fires a powerful heat wave, and Futaba thinks she can deflect it, but her glove starts burning, so she throws it away, as Akai tells her she made the right move, because her flames can't be extinguished. She surrounds Futaba with her flames, but she controls the air around her, preventing the flames from reaching her. But Akai thinks she might be able to overwhelm her, so she strikes the ground, summoning countless heat waves, which cause a massive explosion. Makoto recalls that she used to be an ordinary high schooler, and he was able to find her by hacking medical records, thinking she has already matured. In a flashback, we see Makoto as he watches Akai's house burning, and he sees a suspicious man, thinking he's the one who started the fire. He manages to rescue Akai before the firefighters arrive, and he turns her into one of his test subjects, using her siblings' bodies to help her recover. When she finally regains consciousness, she finds the man who started the fire, and she burns him to death, as Makoto asks her if she feels better. Back in the present, Akai realizes that her attack didn't work, but she reveals that she still hasn't unleashed her full power, telling Futaba she's going to die if she doesn't kill her. But Futaba mentions that she has no plans to kill her, and she enters her blooming state. Akai recalls that Makoto told her she has mastered the Hazakura blooming, but she's still no match for the real thing, so he tells her to avoid the siblings if they unleash their full power. But she wants to see how powerful Futaba is, so she attacks her, but Futaba extinguishes her flames. She reveals that her blooming allows her to nullify all attacks using her fingers, telling Akai she doesn't stand a chance. But she unleashes her full power, and she attacks Futaba with everything she has, but she easily nullifies her flames. Makoto warns her that her body is about to reach its limit, telling her she's going to burn to death if she doesn't retreat, but she doesn't care, and she's determined to kill Futaba. So she fights on, but her body reaches its limit, and we see a massive explosion, but it suddenly disappears, as Futaba extinguishes the flames. She tells Akai she cares for her, and she blasts her with a gust of wind, which removes the flames in her body. She knows that Akai lost everything, but she tells her about Tai, saying he also lost his family, but he never gave in to despair. She tells her to stay down, and Akai loses consciousness, as Futaba reports that she was able to defeat her, but she warns her siblings that she detected a power similar to blooming. Makoto realizes that the situation is getting worse, but he mentions that it doesn't matter if their hideout is destroyed, because it won't affect the seed-sowing project, and we see the frozen body of Musumi's mother Rei. Futaba asks Shion if she was able to learn anything from the enemy transmissions, so she reveals that she was able to find the passcodes for the hideout, saying she will use it to help their siblings rescue the test subjects. We see Nano and Kengo as they encounter a group of enemies, and Nano uses tear gas to put them to sleep. But the place is suddenly covered in ice, as Anuma appears, saying he wants to end the fight quickly. Kengo uses his new weapon, which allows him to create copies of himself, and we learn that Hatoda made balloon puppets for him, but he used his other equipment to turn them into his clones. He uses his clones to surround Anuma, who summons spikes to defend himself, telling Makoto that the siblings are targeting the research wing. So he realizes that they're trying to rescue the test subjects, and he thinks about ordering Kurosawa to wipe them out, telling Anuma to secure the power source. So he immediately retreats, as Kengo and Nano wonder where he went. Aya begs Makoto not to kill the test subjects, but Mizuki stops her, and Makoto tells Kurosawa to do it. So he dashes past Shinzo, as he goes on a rampage, and Shinzo can't believe he's killing his own allies. We learn that Kurosawa doesn't fear death, and he doesn't feel anything when he murders other people, so he always attacks with the intent to kill. A man shoots him with a rocket launcher, but it doesn't work, and he ends up getting stabbed. Shinzo attacks him with his new weapon, as he realizes that Kurosawa is using an organic alloy, which allows him to change the shape of his body. But he knows that Kurosawa isn't invincible, so he keeps attacking, thinking he can crush his body. But Kurosawa regenerates, and a barrier suddenly separates them, as Shion explains that she had to do it, because Kurosawa is a bad match for him, telling him to help Tai and the others. But he explains that he wants to defeat Kurosawa, saying he will activate his blooming if he has to. She reminds him that he hasn't done it in years, but he's determined to stop Kurosawa, and Ayaka cheers for him, because she knows that he has already made up his mind. She reveals that he was able to create a formless alloy, which is extremely difficult to use, but she thinks it's the perfect weapon for him. Shinzo smashes Kurosawa's body, and cuts him into pieces, but his body regenerates, and he covers the area with his alloy, attacking Shinzo from all sides, as he uses a shield to defend himself, but he ends up getting hit. In a flashback, we see Shinzo as he awakens his blooming for the first time, but he gets traumatized, because he realized that his power is hard to control. His mother thinks he's afraid, because he doesn't want to use his powers to hurt other people, and she thinks he's a great person, telling him she loves him for who he is. Back in the present, Shinzo stabs the ground, destroying Kurosawa's alloy, and he begs him not to die, as he activates his blooming. He transforms his weapon into a drill, and he attacks Kurosawa, but he blocks it by creating a shield, and he blows him away. But he realizes that he can't regenerate, and Shinzo explains that he knows the weakness of his alloy, saying it can't repair his body if his cells are destroyed. So he decided to use his blooming ability called Destruction to crush Kurosawa's cells, telling him he will smash him to pieces. Kurosawa charges in, but Shinzo starts attacking him relentlessly, and he struggles to defend himself, realizing he's being overwhelmed. But he sees an opening, and he manages to land a hit, but Shinzo thanks Kurosawa for helping him lose blood, and he delivers the finishing blow. He explains that he was about to lose control, saying he didn't want to kill Kurosawa, so he's glad that he lost enough blood to help him manage his blooming. He reports that he was able to secure the route, but he sees a group of enemies approaching, so he prepares to fight them, but their heads suddenly explode. We learn that Makoto wanted to minimize the risk of data leaks, so he decided to get rid of his men, and he activated their self-destruction chips. Chaka thinks it was unnecessary, but Makoto tells him it's okay, saying they just need to make sure their plan succeeds. The siblings are confused, wondering why their enemies exploded, and Shion realizes what Makoto is up to. So she tells the others that he doesn't care about the hideout or his test subjects, because he's willing to sacrifice everything for his plan. She reveals that she was able to discover a file about the seed sowing project, and she mentions that there are 2,000 tons of Hazakura at the deepest part of the hideout, saying it's enough to affect billions of people. She adds that the storage vault is covered with explosives, which are set to explode when the containers reach its full capacity. When that happens, the Hazakura will be released into the ocean, and it will spread to the coastal cities, where it will destroy the lives of countless people. Shion reveals that they have 30 minutes before the explosion, and she decides to hack into the detonation system using her brain waves. But she encounters an error, and she realizes that her hacking system's output is dropping. Chaka knows that she's using the power sources in the hideout to hack the system, so he ordered Anuma to shut them down, and she realizes that she's about to lose power, so she starts to panic. But Kingo suddenly activates a power source, and Anuma stabs him, but he realizes that it was just a clone. Kingo's clones rush to activate the power sources, and he tells Xian to focus on dealing with the detonation system, but she thinks his plan won't work because he's going to run out of clones. But he tells her not to worry, and he reminds her that she never puts herself at risk while her siblings are fighting, telling her she's a shut-in, so she doesn't always see them. But he tells her they care about her, and they want to enjoy the action with her. So she decides to go with his plan, telling him where to find the power sources, and she turns off the lights, thinking it will throw their enemies off, but Anuma continues to pursue him, and Kingo wonders how he can see him. We learn that he has activated his blooming, and Chaka is giving him instructions, telling him where to find Kingo's clones, as he uses his eyes to freeze them. Kingo realizes he's running out of clones, so Xian becomes worried, and Chaka thinks they're losing because they underestimated him. We learn that Chaka was confined in an institution when Makoto found him, and everyone neglected him because he couldn't communicate with others. But Makoto knew that he had a brilliant mind, so he asked him if he wanted to join Tanopo. Chaka thinks he has the advantage, so he tells Xian to give up, saying she'll never understand him, but she explains that she already does, telling him they think alike, because they're both shut-ins. We see that Anuma has caught up to Kingo, and he's about to kill him, but Kingo suddenly covers the area with smoke, and he activates a power source. Chaka asks Anuma what's happening, but he doesn't know who he's talking to, because there are now more Anumas waiting for his orders. The real Anuma is confused, because he hears Chaka giving him ridiculous commands, and Chaka realizes that Xian is jamming the transmissions with his voice. We learn that Kingo disguised his dolls as Anuma during the blackout, and Xian was able to hack into Chaka's channel as Kingo flooded him with fake messages. Xian tells him he's going to lose because he can't communicate with the real Anuma, and Kingo manages to activate all of the power sources, so she enters her blooming state, telling him it's time to make their move. So he activates his blooming, and he approaches Anuma, revealing that his power improves his ability to empathize with the person he's looking at. He copies Anuma's eyes, telling him his real name is Ryo, and he's wearing a jacket given to him by his grandmother Hako. Kingo mentions that his parents abandoned him, so he ended up living in an alley, and he can't believe Kingo knows everything about him. In a flashback, we see Anuma with Hako, as he steals her food, so she becomes upset, telling him to leave her territory. But he mentions that her days are numbered, and he tells her he likes the spot, because it has warm air coming from inside the building, so he thinks she should leave it for him instead. But one day, it starts snowing, and he realizes that she's gone, thinking he's about to freeze to death. He passes out, but he later wakes up, realizing she gave him her jacket so that he could survive, but she ended up freezing to death. Back in the present, Kingo knows that Makoto eventually found Anuma in the alley, and he tries to shut him up. But Kingo explains that blooming weakens when the soul wavers, and he reminds Anuma that Hako saved his life, telling him he can't stay frozen with guilt forever. So he loses his will to fight, and Chaka feels like he's being watched, as Xian reveals that her blooming allows her to gain full control of the hideout system, telling him it's all over for him. She makes the system self-destruct, and he gets caught in the explosion, as she tells her siblings that she has finally broken through the defense system. Tai and Ichiro arrive at the deepest part of the hideout, and they see Makoto, who tries to provoke Tai, but Ichiro knows that it's a trap, saying the hideout will explode if Makoto takes damage. But he explains that he's willing to sacrifice everything for his project, and he tells them Nano is going to die if they don't do anything. We see Nano helping the TES subjects escape, but Aya suddenly attacks him, and Mizuki appears, as he explains that the TES subjects won't be able to escape because he has already filled the passageway with sleeping gas. He realizes that it doesn't work on Nano, but he thinks it doesn't matter because Aya is strong enough to take him on. Nano begs them to stop, telling them they have no reason to fight for Makoto because he can help them regain a body that doesn't rely on Hazakura, and he promises to help them become a part of society again. But Mizuki explains that they have no society to return to, and he reveals that his family died after a mysterious disease spread in his town. He knows that it was caused by a chemical plant that contaminated the soil, so he joined the town as they sued the owners of the building. But they were backed by the government, so the case was unsuccessful, and the media reported that the town was playing victim because they wanted money. So Mizuki fell into despair, and he was about to die because of the disease, but Makoto saved him when he decided to use his body for research. Mizuki tells Nano he can never save them, and he prepares to finish him off with his poison. Tai hears him screaming, and Makoto continues to provoke him, telling him Nano is going to die if he doesn't make a move, but he mentions that he isn't the only one Makoto is fighting. Oga and Sui suddenly appear to save Nano, and we see Seiji fighting the enemies, as he reveals that the police have arrived with the Hanagiku and Spy Association. Aya starts fighting Oga and Sui, as she mentions that Makoto isn't perfect, but she doesn't want them to take away her home. Nano decides to use his blooming, and he returns to his original form, as there are orbs that form around him. Mizuki realizes that they're absorbing his poison, and Nano explains that they're crystallized cells of Somian, saying they can counteract any poison they come into contact with. He reveals that he saw the list of test subjects, and he thinks Makoto ruined their lives, because they could have adapted to their environment instead of relying on Hazakura. He uses his ability to detoxify Mizuki, removing the poison in his body, but Aya suddenly collapses while she's fighting Oga and Sui. So Nano rushes to her, and he realizes that she can't control the Hazakura in her body. Sui thinks she's going to die in a few minutes, so Nano tries to save her with his ability, but it doesn't work, and her condition continues to get worse. Mizuki thinks he can save her, and he gives her his Hazakura, but Nano is shocked, reminding him that his body completely relies on Hazakura, but he reveals that Aya reminds him of his daughter. We learn that Aya was abused by her mother, and Mizuki learned about it, so he decided to kill her. Aya was raised with the other test subjects, and Makoto realized she's doing well, but one of the kids wasn't responding well to Hazakura, so he decided to get rid of him. Mizuki knows that Makoto is dangerous, so he protected Aya when she tried to stop him, but he knows that she was frightened when he grabbed her head. He tells Nano to take care of her, and she realizes that he's about to die, telling him she was never afraid of him, so she begs him not to leave her. But his body turns to dust, so she starts crying, as Nano tells Tai that he's going to continue rescuing the test subjects. We return to Tai, as Makoto realizes that things aren't going well for him, and Shion reveals that she was able to remove the link between Makoto and the detonation system. So Tai shoots him with his pistol, but he's still standing, and he's about to activate a switch, so Ichiro slices him into pieces. But he tells Tai it's not over, as he reveals that he ordered Shion to track Makoto's career, and they learn that he had records from before the war, realizing he's a monster who has lived for over 100 years. His body regenerates, and he activates his blooming, as Tai realizes that it's the real thing. He reveals that he learned about their family during the Second World War, saying a high-ranking officer ordered him to investigate them, because the military wanted to use them as weapons. So he started doing his research, but the war ended, and his work was covered up. But Ichiro doesn't believe him, because his family didn't work with the military during the war, so he thinks Makoto couldn't have experimented on his ancestors. He mentions that Ichiro is right, saying he had a hard time because they refused to cooperate with the government, but he explains that he still found a way to do his research. He mentions that the world isn't fair, because the weak are no match for the powerful members of society, so he decided to make Hazakura, saying it equally grants power to everyone. He removes his finger, and it turns into an enormous monster, as he reveals that his blooming ability is called regeneration, saying it allows him to store the DNA of his test subjects, and regenerate them into a hideous creature. He knows that Chaka has been defeated, so he decides to activate the detonation system manually, and Tai tries to stop him, but the monster gets in the way. Ichiro defends him, and he tries to kill the monster, but his attack doesn't work. He wraps his wires around Tai, who charges in, dodging the monster's attacks, and he manages to get close to it, so the monster tries to crush him, but we see that Ichiro was able to pull him back, and he launches him with ridiculous force, blowing a hole through the monster, and he tells Tai to stop Makoto, saying he will catch up to him after he defeats the monster. Tai reports that he's about to reach the deepest chamber, and Shion mentions that she's going to disable the detonation system within the next 5 minutes. She tells him to destroy the containers when the system is disabled, knowing the Hazakura will be neutralized when it's exposed to air. Makoto is about to activate the detonation system, but Tai stops him, telling him to surrender. But he ends up getting stabbed, and Makoto tells him he was able to pierce his vital organs. But he refuses to back down, so Makoto uses his blooming, and his eyes react with Tai, who realizes that he's starting to see visions of the past. We see Makoto in his lab, as he notes that the place is about to be destroyed by the military because the higher-ups are trying to cover up their war crimes. We learn that he's been experimenting on a woman who wants his research to succeed, and she mentions that she wants to be reborn as an ordinary person, saying she doesn't like the attention she's getting because of her family. We learn her name is Tsubame, and she's the first head of Musumi's family, but she's willing to sacrifice all of her descendants so that she can live an ordinary life. Tai comes to his senses, but Makoto starts strangling him, and he asks Makoto about the vision he saw. So he explains that their bloomings resonated with each other, saying Tsubame has a special goal, but she needs the blood of her descendants to achieve it. He mentions that technology has advanced, so he thinks he can finally help her achieve her goal, saying he just needs to capture another one of her descendants. But Tai suddenly slices him into pieces, saying there's a lot he doesn't know, but he's certain that Makoto wants to capture Musumi, so he knows that he needs to stop him. But as Makoto regenerates, Tai's body suddenly starts reacting, and Makoto reveals that he injected his blood into Tai when he stabbed him, saying it triggers a severe allergic reaction, which causes him to suffer. He tells him that the seed sowing project is going to improve everyone's lives by making them less dependent on society, and he gives Tai visions of the people who suffered because of Musumi's family, telling him he's also one of their victims, since he lost his family because of them. So he becomes overwhelmed, and he loses consciousness. In a flashback, we see Makoto as the soldiers raid his lab, telling him they're going to surrender Tsubame to their enemies, so that the higher-ranking officers won't be prosecuted for their war crimes. The soldiers remind him that his project is top secret, so they're going to burn him along with his research, telling him they need to do it for their country. But he tells them he won't let them have Tsubame, and he sets off an explosion, which kills everyone. He manages to survive, and he realizes that she didn't get hurt because of her powers, telling her she's free to go wherever she wants. She wonders why he risked his life to save her, but he explains that he doesn't have a good reason, saying he grew up on the island, where everyone was killed by the Spanish flu. So he decided to become a doctor, but he ended up with a job where he had to kill people for his research, saying the world is a cruel place. He thinks the world would be better if everyone was like Tsubame, but he realizes he's about to die, so he thinks he'll never see it happen, telling her to escape from the island. But she tells him to join her, as she gives him powers, telling him to show her the future where everyone's just like her. Back in the present, Makoto tells Tai that he formed Tanopa with Tsubame because he wanted to make their shared vision a reality, telling him they're the same, since he also suffered because of Musumi's family. Tai realizes he's out of strength, but his ring suddenly starts glowing, and Musumi notices it as well, so she tells Tai not to give up. We see Musumi as she tells Tai about the cherry blossom rings, revealing that it allows them to feel each other's heartbeat. She tells him she will send her heartbeat through his ring if she can sense that he's in danger, saying it will awaken her blood inside him. Makoto is about to finish him off, but he suddenly recovers, and he uses his blooming to resist Makoto's attack, as he realizes that Musumi saved him. He tells Makoto they aren't the same, because he wants to have a future with Musumi, and Makoto attacks him, but he uses his sword to fight back, and he destroys the containers, releasing the Hazakura stored inside them. He thinks it's finally over, but he realizes that Makoto was able to absorb all of the Hazakura, and he mentions that he just needs to self-destruct for his project to succeed. Tai tries to stop him, but he gets knocked down, realizing he's no match for him. But the siblings suddenly arrive, realizing that Makoto has turned into an abomination, and Shion reveals that he's storing the Hazakura in his shoulder. Ichiro realizes that Tai is affected by blooming resonance, so he tells everyone not to use their blooming, telling them to stick to Formation Nirvana. Shinzo charges in, and he creates an opening for Kendo, who summons clones that transform into drills. Makoto thinks it's useless, but Nano releases poison gas, and it enters through the holes made by Kendo, preventing Makoto from moving, as Ichiro and Futaba combine their powers to launch a devastating attack. But it doesn't work, and Shion can't believe that their attacks have no effect. Tai notices a thread attached to Makoto's body, and he calls out to Ichiro, who stares at him, as Shion reveals that Makoto is about to explode. But Ichiro mentions that they're going to finish him off with their next move, telling them to use the Sakura root formation, and Tai is going to serve as their axis. The siblings think it's too dangerous given his current condition, but they decide to do it anyway, and Futaba pushes him forward. Makoto tries to stop him, but Ichiro supports him, and he slices through Makoto's arm. Kingo creates clones of him, and they self-destruct, as Shinzo uses his weapon to destroy the ground, and Futaba launches the debris toward Makoto, who thinks it's useless, because the debris can't hurt him. But we learn that Tai is disguised as one of them, and his siblings buffed him with their skills. Makoto doesn't notice him because of the barrage, and he pierces through the ground. Ichiro reveals that the Sakura Roots formation is used to counter underground bunkers, and Tai was the one who suggested it, because he realized that Makoto was hiding something beneath him. He reaches a secret chamber, where he sees Rei's body, but he realizes that there are threads around her. He touches one of them, but he gets a strange feeling, as he hears Makoto's voice, telling him it's crystallized Somian. We learn that it's attached to Makoto's body, giving him the power to contain the Hazakura, so if Tai removes it, his body will be destroyed, but it would trigger a massive explosion, which would kill Tai in an instant. But he grabs onto the threads, as he thinks about going beyond his limit for Musumi, and he removes them, triggering a powerful explosion, but he manages to survive because of his blooming ability. Shion reveals that Makoto's Hazakura level is dropping, and he realizes that he can't maintain his body, so he decides to use his remaining strength to self-destruct. But Futaba uses her blooming ability to seal the energy from the explosion, as Nano crystallizes the Hazakura in Makoto's body. Kingo also uses his blooming ability to decrease Makoto's Somian output, and Shinzo wraps his weapon around him, as Ichiro sends his wires into Makoto's body, saying it will make his cells vulnerable to their next attack. Tai suddenly appears, and he summons lightning, destroying every cell in Makoto's body. He realizes it's all over for him, and he hears Tsubami's voice, telling him his plan didn't work because he's too kind. She thanks him for his research, saying she will give it to someone else so that it won't go to waste, and she mentions that the 100 years they spent together was too short, but she enjoyed every moment of it. She bids him farewell, and he collapses, as Ichiro reports that they were able to capture him. Seiji mentions that all of the enemies in the hideout have been defeated, so everyone celebrates, realizing it's all over, and Ichiro takes Rei's body, planning to give her a proper burial. We see Momo as he's about to leave the island, but Ban stops him, knowing he has Rei's heart. Ban tells him to hand it over, but he refuses, so Ban shoots him, and he uses his ability to stop the bullet, but the impact creates a huge shockwave. He's impressed by Ban's power, saying his ability wasn't able to absorb the entire force of the bullet, but he suddenly disappears. After that, the authorities arrest Makoto, and he waits to stand trial for his crimes, while the other members of Tenopo are under observation. We see Musumi walking in the woods, and she sees Tai near her mother's grave, so she tries to surprise him, but he reveals that he saw her approaching. She explains that she can feel her mother's blood, so she knows that Rei has been buried there, but she asks him why he didn't tell everyone about his secret mission. We learn that the siblings found out, so Ichiro tried to explain, but Futaba started beating him up. Tai mentions that they still don't know anything about Momo, and he promises to investigate him, but Musumi thinks she needs to pay respects to her loved ones first, and she thanks him for giving her mother a proper burial. The next day, Tai sees Musumi wearing her wedding dress, and Kingo dresses him up, as Futaba tells him it's time for the wedding. So they make their way to the reception area, where Futaba thanks the guests for coming, telling them to enjoy themselves. Tai thinks the wedding is weird, so Musumi tells him that the family is holding the event to introduce the new head and her husband to their clients, revealing that most of them work in the underworld. She mentions that her siblings suddenly decided to do the event this morning, saying the timing is perfect because they just finished their mission on Skeleton Island. The oldest spy in the world approaches Tai, but he suddenly attacks him, and Tai barely manages to avoid it. The spy removes his disguise, and we see that he's actually Ban. Keiko mentions that they're there to congratulate Tai with murderous intent, so he becomes confused, and Ichiro tells him about their family tradition, saying everyone's there to test him by trying to kill him. Ban tells him that he and Musumi could die during the wedding, so he starts to panic, but Ichiro mentions that he will defend Musumi, telling Tai that he needs to protect himself during the event. But they hear Rei telling Ichiro to stop, and they realize that she made a video letter for the wedding when they were still kids. Ichiro wonders why she told him to stop, so she explains that she's worried because he's too attached to Musumi. We see Futaba taking care of her, as Ichiro throws a tantrum, saying he wants her back, and Rei tells them all to stop fighting. They watch the video together, and Musumi starts crying as she remembers her mother. Rei congratulates Musumi on getting married, saying she decided to record herself because she doesn't know when her time will come. She mentions that she enjoyed taking care of all of them, saying she wants Musumi to feel the same way when she becomes a mother. Rei thanks Tai for choosing Musumi, telling him to look after her, so he promises to take care of her. But Ichiro becomes jealous, and he starts to lose it, but the others restrain him, reminding him that Tai is now her husband. Musumi thanks her guests for attending the event, and she promises to perform her duties as the new head of the family, telling them to continue supporting her. But she tells them to shoot her as she walks down the aisle, so Tai freaks out, and Ichiro tells him it's part of the family tradition, saying they need to reach the end without getting shot. But Musumi tells him not to worry, because everyone in the family will protect them, and they rush forward as their guests open fire, but the siblings protect them, and Tai realizes he's starting the next chapter of his life with Musumi. We see Tai as he prepares to fight a mad scientist who has a giant robot, and it suddenly opens fire, but Tai dodges his bullets. He transforms his robot's arm into a sword and charges in, but Tai activates his blooming to block the attack, and cuts the robot into pieces. He fires his revolver to end the fight, and the robot crashes to the ground. The Yasakura siblings celebrate since he was able to clear his mission, and Musumi is so impressed that she asks Shion for a copy of the video. Shinzo and Kengo praise him for taking down the mad scientist, but they realize he's tired, since he used his blooming during the fight. Ichiro tells him he still has a long way to go, since he shouldn't use his blooming to defeat weak opponents, and Shinzo reminds him that it puts a lot of strain on the body. Musumi tells them to come home since it's time for dinner, but Ichiro starts being weird, so Shion cuts off the transmission. Futaba receives a call from Rin, who asks for a favor, and we see that she's with Ai. After that, Rin visits the Azakura mansion and tells Futaba to look after Ai, so she tries to talk to her, but Ai is frightened. Rin explains that she's nervous around people since Tanopo was a closed-off community, but Futaba tells Rin not to worry since her family will look after Ai. Rin notices she's sad, so she tells her not to worry and promises to visit her as much as she can. The next day, Rin returns to visit and asks Futaba how Ai is doing, so she explains that they can't expect her to change overnight. Rin heads to her room and asks her how she's been, but she realizes that Ai has warmed up to Tai and Musumi, who treat her like their own daughter. Rin can't believe it, and Futaba explains that she was afraid of them at first, but they gained her trust after they spent time with her. Futaba notes that they plan to send her to kindergarten, but Rin wonders why Ichiro isn't there, so Futaba explains that she sent him on a mission since he got on her nerves. Ai tells Rin she's about to go to kindergarten, and Tai and Musumi are proud of her, since they still remember the time when she was a baby. Rin realizes they have fabricated memories, so she tells Futaba they've gone insane, but Futaba is just glad they were able to form a connection with Ai. After that, Tai and Musumi tell Ai to eat a bell pepper, and she thinks it looks gross, but she eats it anyway. She's proud she was able to do it, and the siblings want to play with her, but Futaba thinks they might scare her, so she tells them to focus on their missions. As Musumi washes the dishes, she realizes that Ai's favorite TV show is about to start, and she promises to watch it with her. Tai notes that he needs to leave for his next mission, and tells them not to wait for him, since he'll be home late. They watch TV together, and Musumi notes that the main character looks like Tai, but she leaves to get cake. Ai sees the main character pat a boy's head, which reminds her of how Mizuki used to do it to her, so she starts to cry. That evening, Ai leaves while Musumi is sleeping, and we learn that she wants to stay in the mansion forever, but she knows that Tanopo will never accept her if she stays with the Azakuras. She thinks she deserves to be alone for the rest of her life, but lightning suddenly strikes a nearby tree, and it's about to crush her, but Tai suddenly slices it in half. He tells her he knew how she felt from the start, since he watched her, and he explains that he understands how she feels, since he also joined the family as an outsider. He knows that they can never take Mizuki's place, but he wants her to be their friend, and she cries as she hugs him. They return home, and Musumi tells them to take a bath, but Ai apologizes for running away, so Musumi tells her it's fine. The ceiling suddenly collapses, and they realize that the siblings were spying on them, so Ai becomes scared. But they give her gifts since they want her to like them, and she thanks them for being nice to her. The following day, a boy wakes Tai up and asks him if he's Musumi's husband, but he realizes it's Ichiro. He screams as he freaks out, and Musumi asks him what's wrong, but she can't believe Ichiro turned into a kid, and her siblings are also surprised to see him. Everyone wonders what happened to him, so he explains that he doesn't remember, but thinks he drank a super potent energy drink. Nano reveals that he made it for Tai, and explains that it's extremely effective, but it has a side effect that causes the user to mentally and physically regress. Ichiro realizes he has turned into his 6-year-old self, but he mentions that he's happy for Musumi, since she has grown into a wonderful woman. She cries as she realizes that he used to be a sweet and kind-hearted child, and he notes that Futaba hasn't changed at all, so she tells him to back off. But he can tell she's been training hard, and notes that he has always looked up to her since she's so cool. She becomes flattered hearing this, and he also praises Shion's intellect, but she loses it since she can't handle compliments. He tells Shinzo he always believed in him, which makes him cry, but Tai asks Nano how long it would take before Ichiro returns to normal, so he notes that the effect will probably last a day. Musumi tells Tai to look after Ichiro, but notes that they should keep him away from the forest, since he might see their mother's grave. They notice he's gone, and Nano notes that he left to explore the mansion with Kengo and the others, so Tai runs to look for him. He sees Ichiro outside, and asks him what he wants to do, so he notes that he wants to play red light, green light. I decides to play with him, and Tai finds him cute, but he notices that the siblings are afraid, since they know that the Asakura-style red light, green light is a dangerous game. Musumi notes that it's the first time she saw Ichiro having fun, and Shion decides to put his video in her permanent archives so that she can use it to blackmail him in the future. Futaba remembers that when she was little, she heard him tell their father he'd do anything it takes to protect his family, but everyone suddenly hears an explosion. They realize that Ichiro is playing with the others, but Musumi interrupts them and scolds them for causing a mess. They enjoy the rest of the day together, and as Ichiro prepares to go to sleep, he thanks Tai for trying to hide their mother's grave from him, but reveals that he saw it when he explored the mansion. He explains that he always thought their home could be destroyed, so he worked hard to get stronger, but he was so obsessed with his family that he felt like he was about to lose his mind. After he saw his siblings' reactions, he realized he'll turn into the annoying brother he always thought he would be, but Tai tells him not to worry since he'll always support him. The next day, Ichiro wakes up next to Tai, but he can't remember anything, so he attacks Tai with his threads. The siblings arrive, and they realize Ichiro is back to normal, so Futaba hits him in the head and tells him to pay for the repairs. We see a boy named Sosuke, who begs the gods to help him find a girlfriend, and the shrine keeper senses his presence, but he can't even see him. As Tai makes his way to school, Musumi notices that he isn't feeling well, but he knows he won't pass if he's always absent. Musumi tells him to drink Nano's energy drink, but she realizes his blooming is active, so she tells him his eyes are glowing. She explains that they can't let anyone see it, and he tries to suppress it, but ends up breaking a pole, so Musumi asks Shion to fix it. They hide in an alley, and Tai finally gets his powers under control, but Musumi tells him to stay home for the rest of the day. So he explains that he needs to go to school, and reveals that he got a mission from Ichiro. We see Sosuke on the campus, and he notices that a girl dropped her handkerchief, so he gives it to her, but she doesn't even recognize him. He can't believe she doesn't know him since they're classmates, and as he reads a naughty magazine in his classroom, we learn that he's a bronze-ranked spy. His classmates suddenly invade his personal space, but we learn that they aren't bullying him, and they just don't know that he's there, since his presence is so weak that nobody ever notices him. He has suffered because of his ability, but it's extremely useful for his missions, since it allows him to sneak past his enemies. Musumi and Tai arrive at the class, and we learn that he's jealous of Tai, since he's a popular spy with the perfect wife. Sosuke leaves his seat, and his classmates finally notice him, so they apologize for disturbing him. He exchanges Tai's book for his magazine, but nobody notices him, so everyone thinks Tai is a pervert. He's happy that he was able to ruin Tai's day, and we learn that he uses his skills for mischief, since it makes his life more interesting. Musumi gives Tai his lunch, but their classmates ask them if they went on a honeymoon, and they realize someone wrote an article about them. Tai knows Sosuke is behind it, but he knows it's difficult to catch him, and a ball suddenly flies in through the window. It hits Tai, who doesn't even flinch, but Musumi tells him his eyes are glowing again, so he pretends that the ball hit them and runs off. We see Sosuke in the cafeteria, where he sees his crush, who realizes that her favorite melon bread is sold out. He offers to give her the one he bought, but a boy takes it from him and walks away with her, so he becomes depressed. He deletes the girl's photos, and wonders if he'll ever find a girlfriend, but he looks at Musumi's pictures. He wonders what it's like to be married to her, but Tai tells him to stop fantasizing about his wife, and reveals that Ichiro ordered him to get rid of Sosuke, since he's been abusing his spy techniques. Tai thinks he's beyond salvation, and tells him to delete the photos of Musumi, but he cries as he mentions that losers like him have no rights. Tai tells him not to belittle himself, and reminds him that they're both spies, but Sosuke suddenly becomes upset. He flicks Tai in the head, and tells him they have nothing in common, since the Asakuras gave him the cheat codes to succeed in the spy world, while he's still stuck as a loser. He suddenly becomes invisible and opens fire, so Tai dodges his bullets, as he wonders why he can't see Sosuke. We learn that Sosuke suppressed his presence to the limit, which makes it impossible for anyone to notice him, and he prepares to shoot Tai from behind. But Tai's blooming suddenly activates, and he shoots Sosuke first. He manages to dodge it, but Tai continues to shoot him, so he wonders if Tai can see him. He attacks using a wire, but it accidentally wraps around his own legs, and he crashes to the ground. Tai can't believe he tripped on his own wire, and asks him why he wrote the article for the school newspaper, so he explains that he just wanted to be popular. He apologizes for his actions, and Tai tells him not to do it again, but notes that he wants to get even before he forgives him. He flicks him in the head, but it sends him flying, as Tai realizes that his blooming suddenly activated again. Sosuke also apologizes to Musumi, who still remembers him, since he once picked up her eraser. He thinks he has a chance with her, but she sees her pictures on his phone, which creeps her out, so she tells Tai to zap him, and tells him to delete the photos. After that, Shion plays a dating sim, and a girl asks her which clothes she should buy, but Shion doesn't know how to respond. Sosuke gives her the right answer, and Tai wonders what he's doing there, but she's impressed that he knows how a girl thinks. He asks her to go out with him, but her friend Kenji suddenly calls her, and she notes that he's an expert at gathering information and analyzing data. He reminds her that she promised to go to the black market with him, so she notes that she'll take him there, but he tells her he looks forward to going on a date with her. He wonders what she'll wear when they go out, but she doesn't seem to care, and tells him they'll meet the next day. As she takes a bath, she thinks about what outfit to wear, and she doesn't consider it a date, but she doesn't want to wear her usual shirt. She goes through her clothes, but she doesn't like any of them, and she can't make up her mind. The next day, Shion asks Musumi for help, since she doesn't know what to wear, so Musumi promises to find the perfect outfit for her. Sosuke also wants to help her, so they decide to hold a contest, where the person who picks the best outfit for Shion wins. Musumi makes her wear a Victorian dress, and Sosuke scores it a 7 out of 10, while Tai gives it a perfect score, since his wife made her wear it. Sosuke forces her to wear gym clothes, and thinks it looks amazing on her, but she doesn't like it, and Tai and Musumi both give it a 0. Musumi and Sosuke make her try on other clothes, but she doesn't like any of them, and she becomes exhausted. They dress her up as Futaba, and make her wear her siblings' clothes, but she thinks they look ridiculous, and tells everyone she's had enough. Shion meets Kenji at the black market, and he notes that her clothes look good on her, so she explains that she used the data she gathered to come up with the perfect outfit. She thinks they should just wear whatever they want, but he knows that she put effort into her outfit, so she becomes embarrassed. Tai takes down a group of criminals, and notes he has completed his mission, but he notices that his revolver is damaged. The next day, Tai shows the revolver to Shinzo, who realizes the damage is severe, and he explains that he needs to leave to buy parts. Tai wants to help him, but he knows that Tai is exhausted, so he tells him to rest, and explains that he's going to a dangerous shopping arcade. Ayaka notes that she also needs to go there to tune up her needles, so they decide to go together, and Tai says goodbye to them. But Kingo and Nano suddenly appear behind him, and tell him they must follow Shinzo. Tai doesn't want to do it, but Kingo explains that they might see something interesting, and notes that it's Shinzo's first time going out with someone. Kingo wonders how he'll behave since he only speaks to his siblings, and tells Tai nothing will happen as long as they don't get caught, but he still doesn't want to do it, so Kingo drags him along. We see Shinzo at the arcade, where a shopkeeper recognizes him as the Asakura's battle freak, and the shopkeeper is afraid of him since he's panting while he holds a gun. we see Kingo laughing at him since he's having a meltdown in front of Ayaka, who tells him they should go on a shopping spree because there are several items on sale. Nano uses his gentle breeze to calm Shinzo down, and Ayaka asks him about the poison needles she's holding, but he gives her a long trivia about it, and he doesn't stop sharing facts. Kingo tells Tai to stop him, so he fires his paralysis bullet, which forces him to stop talking. Shinzo and Ayaka walk around the arcade, but Shinzo bumps into a thug, and his friends tell Shinzo to pay since his bones are broken, but Ayaka beats them up. He tells her she could have just talked them down, but she explains that they deserve it for picking a fight, and Tai can't believe she's the one protecting him. They head to a store, where Ayaka tries on new equipment and asks Shinzo for his opinion, so he tells her it's lightweight and durable, but Kingo's group thinks he should praise her instead. Shinzo realizes it's getting crowded, and he tells Ayaka to give him her hand, so Kingo's group wonders if they're about to hold hands, but he puts her on his back and starts to run instead. They enjoy their time together and take a break in a cafe, where he thanks her for showing him around the arcade. Tai wonders if they're done shopping, but notices that Kingo is gone, and a waitress serves them a huge parfait. Shinzo tells her they didn't order it, but she suddenly disappears, and we learn that it was Kingo in disguise. Shinzo thinks the waitress made a mistake and explains that he can't do anything thoughtful since he lacks courage and common sense. She tells him he's wrong since she always knew he was an introvert, but she likes him since he always looks after Tai and Masumi. She knows that he loves them and tells him to have confidence in himself, so Kingo thinks they're having a moment. But he thanks her for the advice and suddenly appears behind the others. He notes that Ayaka told him to have confidence in himself, so he has decided not to hold back and reminds them that he told them the arcade is dangerous. They apologize for following him, but he decides to return the favor with love, and they scream as he punishes them. The next day, Shinzo notes that he has already fixed the revolver, but he notices that Tai and the others are afraid of him, so he thinks he went too far. After that, Tai returns from his mission, but he suddenly collapses, so Masumi asks her siblings for help. Nano realizes his medicine isn't working, and notes that he's never seen anything like it, so Futaba wonders if anything strange happened to Tai lately. She notes that his blooming kept activating on its own, and Nano promises to look into it, while Futaba tells her to let Tai rest since he's probably tired. As he rests in his room, he notices flowers growing on his body, so he starts to panic. But a voice tells him to calm down, and explains that the flowers eat their host when they're weak. The voice explains that his inability to control his blooming is a warning sign, and it advises him to think about the one he holds dear, so he closes his eyes and thinks about Masumi. The flowers disappear, and he suddenly sees Tsubami, who tells him the flowers won't bother him for a while. He wonders if he's dreaming, so she explains that Makoto infused him with her blood, which is why she can enter his thoughts. She reveals that she's the conscience of the first Yasakura head, and the only time she can awaken is when her other self is asleep, so she can't talk to him for long. She wants him to kill her, but explains that he can't defeat her unless he learns about her former and current self, so she suggests reading the Book of Buds, which has records about her past. She teaches him how to unlock it, but explains that he'll have a hard time learning about her current self, since Makoto is the only one who knows about her. She reveals that he's with the Spy Association, and explains that the only way for Tai to contact him directly is to become a silver-ranked spy. She realizes her other self is about to awaken, so she says goodbye to him, and as he wakes up, he wonders if it was all just a dream. He heads to the Book of Buds, and as he touches the casing, the lock responds to Tsubami's blood. He manages to unlock it, and as he reads it, he realizes it can't help him yet, but he now knows he wasn't dreaming. Tai tells the siblings he wants to take the silver-ranked spy exam, but they think he doesn't need it, and he doesn't know how to explain the situation to them. They realize there's something he isn't telling them, so they tell him to spit it out, and note that he can't hide anything from them. But they explain that it's normal for families to keep secrets from each other, and they think he'll pass the exam at his current level. Shion mentions that he might have an issue with the proctor, and explains that a gold-ranked spy will monitor the exam. But she thinks it's the dreaded time that comes every few years, where not even a single candidate will pass the exam. After that, Tai goes through a washing machine to reach the venue of the exam, but a girl named Yusa recognizes him as the Yasakura family's candidate. She reveals that she's a reporter for Spy Day, but he recalls how the company wrote a ridiculous article about him, so he decides to ignore her. She thinks he's taking the exam to talk to Makoto, and believes he didn't tell his siblings about it, but she reveals that when she shared her ideas with her boss, he threw her around and told her to interview Tai. They reach the first test site, but Tai wonders why it's empty, and Shinzo joins them in the room, but he becomes nervous when he sees everyone. Yusa thinks she'll be able to make a good story, because a member of the Asakura family is their proctor, but Shinzo suddenly stumbles since he's too nervous. Tai hides behind the other candidates, since he knows that Shinzo won't start the test if he sees him, and he introduces himself as the proctor for the first stage. He notes that the proctors will sign the candidates' licenses with special ink, and they will transform into silver-ranked licenses after all 3 proctors sign them, but he tells them they need to go through him first. He notes that the first stage is a game of tag, and explains that anyone who touches him will pass the test, so the candidates think it will be easy. Yusa thinks they're underestimating the Asakura family, and Shinzo takes out his guns, telling everyone it's time to start the test. He shoots them with his knockout bullets, so Tai blocks with his sword, while Yusa gets down, but most of the other candidates are eliminated. Shinzo notes that the candidates who got hit will be out for an entire day, so they have already failed the test, and Yusa realizes that about a third of them have been wiped out. He activates his blooming, but a group of candidates thinks they can take him on, so they rush toward him. He realizes Tai is taking the test, but decides not to go easy on him, since he needs to do his job as the proctor. He stops the candidates with his knife, and easily takes them out, but another group attacks him from a distance, so he closes the distance and eliminates them. He goes on a rampage, and the candidates are afraid of him since he's OP, but Tai suddenly charges in, so Shinzo blocks his attacks and pushes him back. We see the siblings watching them, and Shion reveals that Shinzo's blooming destroy allows him to see through attacks and counter them, so she thinks Tai can't win in a fair fight. We go back to when the siblings train Tai, and Shion tells him to use Shinzo's weaknesses against him, revealing that he cries whenever he sees bugs. Kingo mentions that he'll freak out when he sees his siblings in pain, and suggests that Tai fake being severely injured, so that Shinzo will lose it. Nano thinks it's too harsh, but suggests using lethal toxins to defeat him, and the siblings discuss what they should do. Tai thanks them for their help, but notes that he can't exploit Shinzo's weaknesses, so he'll just fight him fair and square. Back in the present, Tai runs around Shinzo and attacks him from all directions, but Shinzo electrocutes him, and tells him he won't win unless he fights with the intent to kill. He uses his weapon to attack with lightning, but Shinzo transforms his weapon into a lightning rod and blasts him away. Tai admits that he wasn't going all out, and notes that he's ready to fight to the death, but he gives a signal to the other candidates, which makes Shion realize he has decided to fight dirty. They scatter around Shinzo, who realizes they're up to something, so he prepares to wipe them out. One of them releases a swarm of bees, so he jumps away, but a man surrounds him with lethal toxins. He realizes his siblings told Tai about his weaknesses, but he isn't worried, since his blooming allows him to confront his fears. He throws his knife, which creates a wind vortex that blows everything away, and he stabs Tai, who starts to bleed, but he knows that the blood and arm are fake. He notes that they can't deceive his blooming, but Yusa suddenly blinds him with her camera, and the candidates rush toward him from all directions. He prepares to destroy the ground to force them back, but Tai gets in the way, and Shion thinks he made the right move, since Shinzo can't bring himself to kill his own family. He's worried that Tai won't survive the attack, so he loses focus, and Tai uses the chance to destroy his weapon. He touches Shinzo, who congratulates him for passing the test, but Tai suddenly restrains him, and the other candidates also make it to the second stage. They head to the rooftop, which is the venue for the second stage, and they see Futaba as she prepares tea for them. She tells them to finish their tea to pass the test, but Tai knows it's been tampered with, and as one of them tries to drink it, Futaba sends him flying. She reveals that she infused the tea with her powers, and explains that it will activate if they can't counter her technique, so everyone tries to figure out her secret. Many of them get blasted away, and Tai realizes that over half of them have been eliminated, but they suddenly feel a strong breeze as Yusa finishes her cup. Tai wonders how she did that, so she explains that she got lucky, since she learned about the Asakura tea ceremony through her job. But the other candidates decide to use force to pass the test, so Futaba forces them to sit. She tells them to observe as she prepares tea, and Tai sees her move the cup, so he finally figures out her secret. He prepares to drink the tea in front of her, and she's confident he'll pass, since he watched her movements closely. She watches him as he follows her steps in reverse order, and she's glad he was able to catch on, as she recalls how he used to be just a neighborhood kid. In a flashback, we see Tai as he takes Musumi home, and she thanks him for giving her worksheets. She asks Ichiro if she can invite him over, and he refuses to let him enter the house, but Futaba knows he's just jealous. Musumi's parents disappear, and Futaba notices she's stressed, so she tells her to take a break. But Tai visits them and offers to walk Musumi to school, so they started going together. When Tai's parents died in the accident, he was admitted to the hospital, but Musumi looked after him and helped him recover, and Futaba realized that they have a special relationship that only grows stronger with each passing day. Back in the present, the other candidates feel a gust of wind as Tai finishes his cup, so Futaba congratulates him on clearing the second stage. She signs his license, but he suddenly falls into a hole with the other candidates, and Ichiro's wires catch them as he reveals himself as the proctor of the final stage. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.